Well, hello there. Welcome to the Obi-Thorn Alliance. I'm Jacob.
I'm Luke.
And in today's video, we're very excited to be doing a very interesting video, a top 20 from 2003 to 2023 with a
Yep.
twist. And I'll explain that later, but we got a very special guest joining us, Kenny Sparks.
Hey, what's up, y'all? So happy to be here. Sorry for the lateness. It's all my fault. Don't blame Opithurian at all. So I'm really excited to get into my list. My list is a little interesting. I will say that much. It's more so what I enjoyed more so than what was the best thing that came out that year. So you might be surprised by a little bit of things that come up on this list, and you might not be. So I'm looking forward to getting into it.
Yeah, that's very interesting. We kind of have that same debate between us. I sometimes think when ranking movies, it's not always the best movie, it's the one that I enjoy the most,
Right.
which is not often the same. Usually the best movie is not the one I enjoyed the most, but you can appreciate the difference between the two. So that'd be cool to see your list.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you want to tell us a bit about your channel? Or anyone
Yeah.
hasn't?
Yeah, sure. So my channel is Kenny Sparks. That's the name of the channel. Essentially, I review movies. I essentially offer my opinion and encourage you to form your own. I never think that what I've said about a movie is the end all be all. I want everyone to go out and see it for themselves. Come back, let's have a conversation about it, and then we can all enjoy cinema bliss. Right now on my channel, I have a review for Dune Part 2. I'm working on reviews for Imaginary as well as Kung Fu Panda 4 and potentially Damsel. I'm not sure. I already have a heavy workload. So if you guys, and I also put out a review for Avatar: The Last Airbender, the Netflix show that just came out maybe 2 weeks ago. So that's everything that's going on my channel right now. And yeah.
So it seems like movies your thing. That's what you're into reviewing?
Movies are my thing for sure. And
Good
sometimes
jam.
I have things about comic books as well, and just some of my other interests, but it's mostly movies.
Jacob's the TV expert. No,
Right.
I watch the movies in our channel, so we get a bit of a variety there.
Nice.
How many movies you've seen this year so far? New movies?
So far, 20. I've seen 20 so far for 2024. My goal for this year is to watch 100 movies.
Yeah,
The same, you boy.
I've got the same goal. I'm at 24 so far. So
Nice.
Yeah, so there's still a few. Like Imagine, what isn't out yet for us. So I haven't seen that yet.
Okay, yeah.
It's coming soon. Okay.
Shall I explain the rules?
Yeah.
So the concept is from the 20 movies, you can only choose one from each year. So that's what makes it hard. So that's why this list is extremely hard. So, yes.
And we are aware from 2003 to 2023 is actually 21 calendar years.
Yeah.
So
I noticed that. I was like, wait, is this wrong? Am I wrong?
So we're aware of that. So we both coincidentally didn't pick a movie for 2020 because that was kind of peak COVID year and there was no good movies out.
When I was putting together my list, I was like, there's not a lot happening in this year at all.
Tenet came out that year.
You said Tenet?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a film. That's been created.
Like Wonder Woman came out.
Yeah.
Borat 2. There wasn't a whole lot that came out in 2020.
Yeah.
So
I'm not a huge fan of Tenet, but I do acknowledge its existence.
Yeah. Okay, well, you're the guest, so why don't you go first? Tell us what you've got at number 20 and what year, and we'll go around the table.
Sure. So for 2003, are we starting from 2023?
Did you put them in order from your favorite movie to your 20th favorite movie, or you just went through the years?
I put it in year order. Was I not?
We went for a favorite order. That makes it even harder.
Oh, okay. All right. So that would be interesting. I put it in year order from 03 to 23. Let's see here. So, but I can tell you what my number one favorite movie is. I can actually freestyle this.
Okay, we'll start it. You got to start at the end. So, what's your 20th favorite movie from your list, and what year did it come out?
Sure, my 20th favorite movie from this particular list, I'm going to go with The Five Bloods. It's from let's see. It is from 2020, actually.
Okay.
The Five Bloods is directed by Spike Lee. It stars uh, Delroy Lindo, Jonathan Majors, Norm Ellis, and Chadwick Boseman as well as one of his final performances. This film is absolutely fantastic. I honestly believe that Delroy Lindo should have been nominated for an Oscar for Best Actor for this particular movie. It's a Netflix movie, so if you guys ever want to check it out, that's where you'll find it at. But yeah, this movie is absolutely fantastic. It's breathtaking. Essentially, what it's about is it's about five soldiers who were in the Vietnam War, and while they're in the war, they actually found some gold in Vietnam, buried it, and decided that they will come back 20 years later in order to retrieve it. So when they come back to retrieve it, what they believe to be a pretty simple mission, if you will, ends up being pretty complicated because there's other people who are interested in their activities. It's a phenomenal movie from Spike Lee.
Yeah, I haven't heard of it. Have you heard of it, Jacob?
No, I haven't.
Well, with a cast like that and having Spike Lee as the director, I could imagine it would have been an awesome film. So have to add it to this.
Yeah, honestly, it should have been nominated for Best Picture, Best Actor for Delroy Lindo, like I said, and like I said, it's one of Chadwick Boseman's final performances.
Okay, what have I got at number 20? Get up my list. The 20th best film I saw on our list, I've got 500 Days of Summer. So that movie came out in, that came out in 2009. So that's one of my, when I first got a Blu-ray player, I think this was like the first Blu-ray I bought. I really, really liked this movie. It's bit of a, I don't know if I'd call it a romantic comedy, and it starts with the premise that this movie is not a romantic comedy and it does not have a happy ending. But I just like the way they do it and the clever play on words of working through the 500 days of, and the girl that he's in love with's name being Summer. I think it's very, very clever. So that was my 20th on the list. What have you got at number 20, Jacob?
My number 20 is Inglourious Bastards with Brad Pitt. And for me, what it does well is an alternate history of World War II. But as a historian myself, I kind of think to myself, well, if I was a soldier watching this movie, I'd be like, they killed Adolf Hitler in the scene when they were in the theaters so easily, when it wasn't so easy to kill Adolf Hitler. So to me, that's kind of not as good, but as a film, it's superb, but unfortunately something has to be down on the lowest tier.
Yeah,
I also haven't seen that movie. I must say I haven't seen a whole lot of Brad Pitt films. He's one of those actors that I've kind of...
Inglourious Bastards is probably one of my favorite Quentin Tarantino movies for sure. Brad Pitt is incredible in it. Actually, the whole cast. BJ Novak is incredible in it as well. The gentleman who's a writer on The Office.
Okay.
Yeah, so I absolutely enjoy this film, and like the opening scene is so chilling. It actually reminds me of Rogue One's opening scene, which I kind of feel like was the inspiration for Rogue One's opening scene. It's a very tension-filled scene where a family of Jewish people are being interrogated about Nazis who, I believe they're actually Germans who are Jewish sympathizers are being interrogated by Nazis who are coming there. And I believe that is Christoph Waltz, who is part of that interrogation team. Yeah, so that entire scene is phenomenal. Great way to open a movie. Terrifying way to open a movie, but also great.
Another one I have to add to the list. So what do you got at number 19? Coming up with this list on the spot, it might be tricky.
Number 19, I'm going to go with Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. This movie has a lot of issues, of course. However, it's one of my most fun movie experiences ever. Like when you have the duel of the fates between Anakin and Obi-Wan playing, then you have Yoda and Palpatine fighting at the same. I say playing, fighting. They're not playing. They are quite literally trying to take each other out, fighting at the same time. Like this entire film is nothing but momentum. The first two films, Episode 1 and Episode 2, I don't think those are good movies at all.
No.
This happens to be the best of the original, no, not the original, best of the prequel trilogy. Yeah. So so all of the conclusion to that story is incredible. How we get there isn't great. But I think the thing that George Lucas does well is that he crafts a narrative. I don't think he's a good director as far as filmmaking is concerned. So visuals, he's astounding. Storytelling, he's astounding. Filmmaking, in terms of like acting and getting good performances out of your actors and stuff like that, he leaves a lot to be desired. But he did create this, and props to him.
Wait, what year did that come out?
2005.
This was 2005.
Wow.
Yeah.
If I didn't know that, I would have thought that they came out in the late 90s. I didn't realize that it's been within 20 years that we had them come out. Interesting. Okay, what have I got? Number 19 on my list, I've gone with Superbad, which came out in 2007. One of my favorite comedies. The only reason it's probably so low on the list is because I didn't want to stack the list with too many comedies at the top.
You love your comedies.
I am a big fan of comedy films, and sometimes when you make a list like this, people will critique it and say, "Oh, well, surely that movie can't be better than that one. It's just a comedy." So I didn't want to annoy too many people. But yeah, Superbad, classic comedy. The kind of Jonah Hill got big out of that. We saw, there's a lot of big performances and heaps of classic lines. And I think kind of forever will stay funny. And I think it's kind of a timeless humor because there's I know it doesn't really have anything in there that time stamps that you go, oh, well, that wouldn't happen. They kind of, they just go on this wacky adventure and find their way through it. So, I've got Superbad.
At my number 19 is Batman Begins, and this is obviously the beginning of the journey for Bruce becoming Batman and meeting Ra's al Ghul as Liam Neeson. But the problem I have with the Dark Knight trilogy, and I've been putting in some deep thought about this, is that why we remember Christopher Nolan's trilogy is because of the villains, not Batman as a character. So for me, that's why for me it's this low on the list, because we remember Heath Ledger's performance, rest in peace, and for me the Batman isn't as strong. Christian Bale isn't as strong as a Batman. All we remember is his deep voice, and that's why I can't put it higher, because it's just not as good as a film, because it's not as a same level as a different Batman movie.
Gotcha. Yeah, Batman Begins is it's a really good movie. It had to grow on me after some time. I had a lot of issues when I first saw it, but like I said, over time it's grown on me. I had a huge issue with Scarecrow just wearing a burlap sack and a business suit. But other than that, man, I did think that Christian Bale's performance was good. It was serviceable, right? But Ra's al Ghul, he was phenomenal, and a lot of the elements of that movie is phenomenal. It was just the burlap sack, man. The burlap sack on Scarecrow took me out of it. But other than that, man, it's a pretty good movie.
Number 18, what do you got, Kenny?
Number 18 from 2009, I have Black Dynamite. Black Dynamite is a comedy that is a blaxploitation spoof. It stars Michael Jai White. It is one of the funniest movies I've ever seen in my entire life. The entire film is just one big representation of how ridiculous blaxploitation films used to be. You have Black Dynamite fighting Richard Nixon. You have drug dealers in a town hall meeting talking about Black Dynamite walks in. He's like, from now on, no one sells drugs in my community. And the other guy says, but Black Dynamite, I sell drugs in the community. It's like, what? Like, this is so hilarious from start to finish. I absolutely love that movie. And like you, I'm probably only going to have one comedy near the middle to the top of this list. And I think there's only two comedies on this list in total. And this is definitely one of them for sure.
Okay, that sounds good. I love like. Would you consider it's like a spoof movie? Is that the whole point of it?
Absolutely, it's
Yeah.
hilarious. It's like there's intentional microphones coming into the frame. This is the kind of like cigarette burn kind of things are on the screen while you're on the film and stuff like that. It's a hilarious movie.
I
Okay.
haven't heard of it.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that sounds good. I love those type of movies. Like the scary movie, or Not Another Teen Movie, or even the parody of like Boys in the Hood, the one that has the Wayans brothers in it.
Mhm.
Yeah, like all these type of
Yeah, I
movies
know
are
exactly which one you're
funny.
talking about. Yeah.
Okay, that sounds good. What have I got? Number 18, I got I, Tonya. So that
yes.
came out in 2017, obviously starring Margot Robbie, who's not only from Australia, she's also from the same town we're from, the Gold Coast. So her school where she went to is just around the corner from where we are now. I like sports movies. I'm a big fan of sports movies. And this was a story I didn't know of. The whole Tonya Harding scandal was probably before I was born. So it was interesting to see how it went down. And I thought that 2017, there wasn't a whole lot of movies to pick from. But out of the bunch to choose from, that was the one that stood out, the one that I would rewatch the most out of all the options.
Good choice. My number 18 is The Dark Knight Rises. And the same problem with The Batman Begins. Tom Hardy as Bane steals the show in this performance, but this is the final conclusion to the Dark Knight trilogy. The fight scene when the police and the Bane henchman fight was one of the epic scenes of the trilogy. But I kind of think to myself, if Heath Ledger didn't pass away in Batman, The Dark Knight, how amazing would the third film been? Unfortunately, we never got that because he passed away. But I still have the same problem with Christian Bale as the Batman, because the main problem is as well throughout the main trilogy, him as Batman, we know he's the greatest detective, but we never see him as a detective. So
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's why it's as low as it is, but still a great franchise nonetheless.
I totally agree. I haven't seen I, Tanya. I know that it's definitely my understanding is that it's definitely one of Margot Robbie's better performances, so that's something that has to go on my list. As far as The Dark Knight Rises, I thoroughly enjoy that movie. I absolutely adore that movie, and even though it's not as good as The Dark Knight, I still feel like it's a good ending for that story, and I love the fact that it's an ending. Like it's not like maybe he'll come back. It's like no, this is it. This is the end. And Tom Hardy as Bane was phenomenal. So yeah, that's a great choice.
Yeah, it's I'm a massive Batman fan, which we'll see as we get towards the top of the list. But yeah, I think it is cool how it's an ending, and I think even that scene where Alfred talks about just one day he'd like to see him, across in a cafe in another country, and he'll just look at him and they'll know. It's like I think it's a good ending to that Batman franchise. So I think
it's such a great scene. Yep.
Number 17, what do you got?
Number 17, I have Fast Five. This is the fifth installment of the Fast and the Furious franchise. This is where it starts to get a little crazy, but it hasn't gone full Fast and Furious yet. It's the first movie with The Rock in it. It's got Vin Diesel, and they have their meeting and stuff like that. And also the scene where they're dragging the bank vault through Rio de Janeiro. This movie is incredible and a great revival for this series, and it's good from 5, 6, and 7. 8 is kind of where it gets like, okay, what are we doing here? And then 9 and 10, it just like falls off a cliff. But yeah, Fast 5 was the beginning of the resurrection of this series, and I absolutely adore this movie.
Yeah, well, how many of the Fast and Furious movies have you seen, Jacob?
I saw 9 by myself. I believe I saw 5, and the last one with Paul Walker, I believe was 7 as well. What was unfortunate, they passed away, but I haven't seen all of them. How many have you seen?
I think I've seen 1, 2, and Tokyo Drift. I think I kind of lost interest after that.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you at all.
We did a video about our most overhyped franchises, and I had Fast and the Furious pretty high up on that list. I don't get the phenomenon. I understand why people watch it. I don't know if now it's at that point where it's like that Sharknado kind of thing where people has a cult following because they just want to see it get ridiculous, or whether
it's hit the Sharknado button for sure. It's gotten there. I want to say about Fast and Furious 7 or 8, it started hitting that Sharknado button.
Yeah. So yeah, I can't. I haven't seen that one. So yeah, I don't think I'll be putting that on the list for me. So at number 17, I've got Gone Girl from 2004, which has Ben Affleck in it. Ben Affleck is one of my all-time favorite actors. Him, Matt Damon, and probably Christian Bale. Oh, and I really like Mark Wahlberg. They're like my top tier male actors that I really like seeing.
Yeah,
I think Gone Girl, having not read the book and not knowing the twist, what was coming, I felt in suspense the whole time. And I don't think it was predictable ending. You kind of had a sense of what may have been happening, but you didn't know the details of how it was going to unfold.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I don't think you get that too often with movies anymore. I think people predict the endings, or the twist have happened so many times now that you kind of know what's going to happen. Or you get movies that have think of Argyle recently. It has 5 twists in it, just overkill.
Yeah.
So I really, really like Gone Girl, and I think it was a really, really awesome performance.
Gone Girl's great.
Very good choice. My number 17 is Rise of the Planet of the Apes, the first of the reboot trilogy. Now we are getting its 4th one, but with this film, I loved how they bring in James Franco in the first one. We also got Caesar, played by Andy Serkis, who is a phenomenal voice actor. Just recently saw the Lord of the Rings Return of the King, and he steals the show as Gollum. And this movie is such a interesting take if apes actually became equal to human beings. But unfortunately, why it's not higher is they also changed the male characters, so it's hard to root for the humans. But the main point is Caesar is the main character. But Rise of the Planet of the Apes is a good starting point for the reboot. And now we're up to its 4th one. And I believe they're leading up to the older movies. Yeah.
See, yeah, I agree with that. I think that this new trilogy is going to get us closer to what we saw, not we, because I actually didn't see it, from the late 60s when the movies first started. Totally agree with that. Rise of the Planet of the Apes is phenomenal. That entire trilogy is super underrated. It's on, there's a few trilogies that are underrated from our generation in the 2000s. One is the Planet of the Apes trilogy. The other one is the Kung Fu Panda trilogy, which I guess also now is a quadrilogy, unfortunately, because I did not like Kung Fu Panda at all. And the other one, 4 at all. The other one is the Star Trek trilogy with Chris Pine. That trilogy as well is phenomenal. But as far as Rise of the Planet of the Apes, it is a great reintroduction to these characters, or I guess you could call it a reboot, kind of, because all these characters are new. But yeah, it's a great start to a great trilogy, and I love the subsequent ones as well. So totally agree. And Gone Girl is amazing. Gone Girl is one of the best movies I've ever seen. Ben Affleck and is it Rosamund Pike?
Yeah, I think so.
Rosamund Pike, they are just matching with the entire movie. That movie's great. I've only seen it once, but it's left that mark on me. It's that good.
Yeah, the only other movie I can think of that's very similar that I had the same impact was The Girl on the Train.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they're similar stories in a way, gaslighting and getting then you got to work out the mystery. But yeah, it's a great movie. But yeah, I also like the Planet of the Apes. I haven't put that on my list, but for a kind of an interesting sci-fi, the idea that apes taking over, it's done so well and it's kind of believable. And you go, you know what, that could happen. Someone experiments with these apes and then they just overpower us, and you know, humans become the hunted species in the end. And that's why I think the new one's coming out is going to be really awesome to see that idea of the last remaining kind of humans and what they're going to do to survive.
Yeah, one of the things I'm most interested in with this new the 4th one that's coming out is this idea that the people who have been oppressed when they're in power for long enough, they also become the oppressor. So it's kind of this cyclical
Full circle.
kind of thing. Yeah, full circle kind of thing. And so that's a very interesting thing to explore, because now we have I don't even know the character's name yet, but our Caesar this time now saying, hey, like the humans, like hunting humans is not a good thing. Like we should not be treating people like this. And you get the reverse in the first three movies. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how they pull that off. It should be interesting.
Yeah, I think, and I'm a huge fan of James Franco, so I think he did so well. And I think James Franco's underrated. I think he's in his serious movies, he's great, and I think he's obviously comedy's his thing too. He's absolutely hilarious and extremely talented in terms of his being a director, writing, and I believe he has a doctorate too. He's a pretty smart dude.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So he's So number 16, what do you got?
Number 16, I have X2, X-Men United. This is from 2003. This is the second movie of the original X-Men trilogy. You have in this particular film, you have Wolverine dealing with I forget the villain's name, the general who pretty much created the Weapon X program that created Wolverine. And you also have this like dichotomy between the mutants, the humans who want to kill the mutants, and you also have Magneto who's set out to kill all the humans, and then you have the X-Men right there in the middle, which is pretty much a classic X-Men story. The only things I don't particularly like about this movie is the fact that Cyclops is pretty much sidelined, as is Professor X for a while. General Stryker. That's his name. General Stryker is the guy who actually has a mutant child who he's using his mutant power in order to like try to take out all the mutants through taking over Cerebro. Like it's an incredible movie. It's really damn good. And unfortunately, after this, it kind of falls off a cliff for the next few X-Men movies. But X2 is like peak X-Men, and then you have that fight with Wolverine and Lady Deathstrike, which is an amazing fight. So yeah, this entire film, I really like it. I know a lot of people who are traditionalists in the comic book sphere don't love it because they don't love these portrayal of the X-Men. But for me, I view all of these superhero films as their own universe. So if things are different, then that's fine with me. It can be different. It may not be good. That doesn't mean it's automatically good because it's different. But I don't like if I'm watching The Dark Knight and I'm watching Batman the Animated Series or reading a Batman comic book, my expectations of them are not for them to be the same. So this, to me, is an entertaining interpretation of the X-Men.
I agree with that. When you hear people say that, this movie didn't reference the source material, or that's not the version I wanted to see, it's like you just look at, for instance, the Batman comic books. There's like 100 versions of Batman written by different people with different backstories. It's like, but that's fine. Comic book lovers will accept that, but they won't accept when a movie doesn't reference the source material.
Yeah, something I said on Threads, I want to say last week was people who bang the drum in terms of wanting comic book accuracy are very interesting because comic books don't even have comic book accuracy. Like they don't follow themselves. And then when you get to the actual comic book movies, it doesn't matter what your favorite comic book movie is. It is not comic book accurate. I can guarantee you. So either you accept some comic book inaccuracy or you accept none of it. I mean, it's not that extreme, but it's just the idea that if it's not comic book accurate, it's not correct. When the comic books are not comic book accurate. So,
it's like which version do you pick when you turn a comic book into a movie? Like, is the original version considered the original? Like, is that the one you have to go off? And otherwise,
it had to be like yellow spandex. Wolverine's not even on the team in the original iteration of the X-Men. Iceman looks like literally a pile of snow. Like he doesn't look like an iced person at all. So there's all these different interpretations.
Guess people will never be happy.
Okay, so at number 16, I've got I think this might be the only or animated film I put in here. I put Wreck-It Ralph from 2012. I just think Wreck-It Ralph is such a fun franchise. I do think that the second one is a lot better, but that doesn't make the list because it came in a pretty competitive year. Yeah. But Wreck-It Ralph, I think, is a really cool concept of just imagining these games being alive in their own little world. And, just because he's the villain of the game doesn't mean he is a villain, and he's sick of seeing the other person get the rewards. I just think it's a very fun animated film that I think, even though it was made for kids, I think adults can watch it and really like it, because I don't think it's kiddish at all. I actually think you need to be an adult and have played the games to fully understand the jokes that are in it. Like, I watch it with my son and he wouldn't get the jokes. He'd just see the characters and like, oh, that's fun. He fell over. But they don't get the little jokes, like how they go to taps to have drinks, or, they talk about, and like they travel between the extension leads to get between, games, and then the train station is the PowerPoint, and, just little things that only adults would understand. But I think it's a very, very clever animated film. Yeah, with a good message.
Yeah.
Very good.
What do you got, Jacob?
My number 16 is Spider-Man 2 with Tobey Maguire. And for me, this is an excellent superhero movie for its time. It did come out in 2004, but unfortunately, I don't think it holds up as well. But to be fair, it did come out in 2004, but now we have excellent superhero movies. But this is when superhero movies were not as saturated as it is now. And with Spider-Man 2, of course, we have Dr. Ock. He's such a fantastic villain with Spider-Man. And it was such an awesome fight scene when they had their epic duel, seeing that Spider-Man had to learn his ways in Spider-Man 2. And this is such a fantastic superhero movie for when we weren't oversaturated back in 2004.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Spider-Man 2 is one of the better superhero movies of all time. I'm not as high on it as other people, because I feel like there's a long swath of that movie where nothing is happening. The points where he loses his powers and to the point that he gets it back, that section of the movie is important for the story, but it lasts a little bit too long. Other than that, I will say something that I don't think anyone has ever disproven me of. The Spider-Man versus Doc Ock fight on the clock tower on the train is the best one-on-one superhero fight in a superhero movie. I have never seen anything better than it. It is the best. When you think about even Captain America versus Winter Soldier, like under the bridge when they're fighting there, or you think about Shang-Chi versus Wenwu, those are two other great superhero fights. But this one on the side of the train coming off the clock tower is the best one-on-one. I'm not talking about groups and people coming to assist. I'm talking about it's just Spider-Man, it's just Doc Ock. And it's still to this day the best one I've ever seen.
Yeah, sure. And an epic ending to the fight, stopping the train just in time, his mask coming off, and everyone's like, don't worry, we'll keep your secret, we'll cover you. Like, I think it's cool. So what's your favorite Spider-Man, Jacob? Do you like the Tobey Maguire, or you're into the Tom Holland one?
It's hard to go past Tobey Maguire, but might be Andrew Garfield.
Okay. Oh yeah, I thought about that as an option. I don't know. I think I don't know if I like Tobey Maguire because when it came out, that was like a particular time in my life, when I was a bit younger and was like really into it. But I do think the Tom Holland Spider-Man, to me, kind of captures the essence of Spider-Man more so. He's younger, he's more funny. That's also got to do with the writing, not necessarily him. But that kind of, I think, represents the more cheeky Spider-Man and how I envision him. But I do kind of think the Tobey Maguire for me is the classic Spider-Man. The suit for sure is that's when I think of a Spider-Man suit, it's the Tobey Maguire one. When I play the Spider-Man games on PlayStation, I'm always picking that suit.
You can't go wrong with any of the three Spider-Man. I too would lean towards Tom Holland. I think that, like you said, he does embody like the everything of Spider-Man, and he does such a good job of displaying that emotion. Like, he goes to whimsy, but he also displays that emotion, especially in No Way Home, where he's dealing with the loss of Aunt May. He's dealing with just failing in every situation and where he is in his life. I think that is the best picture of Spider-Man that we've seen. Actually, as a matter of fact, even in Spider-Man Homecoming, when the Vulture knocks down all the beams and he's below that thing, and he's like, "Come on, Spider-Man," and he has to will himself to actually like pick himself up. Like I think that those are some of the best examples of what Spider-Man is in film.
I think I find it funny in. I think it might be the Oh, no, it might be the first. I'm going to say the second Spider-Man with Tom Holland when he's like messaging Happy, and he's like, "Oh, I've just like saved this old lady, and I got paid a sandwich." You know, I sit there and he finds the bike, and he like, "Who's this bike belong to?" And he can't give it away. And I just think that's funny. He's like, Spider-Man in essence does fight. He's your local friendly Spider-Man. He takes on the little jobs, but then he obviously is a big part of the universe. But I think they nailed that where the Tobey Maguire ones are very serious, and he just seems a bit too old to be Spider-Man.
Everybody in that thing is old. That entire high school has mortgages.
Yeah. Yeah, like that. The dude that plays Flash from Magic Mike. That looks way too old to be at school. Okay, so we're up to number 15. What do you got, Kenny?
Number 15, I have Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street. This is the only musical on my list, and it's that impactful. I think that Johnny Depp does an incredible job of playing Sweeney Todd, singing these songs, as well as, I always get her name wrong, so I have to read it. Helena Bonham Carter. She's also in the Harry Potter film series.
Is she Tim Burton's wife? Is that? No?
I don't know, honestly.
Yeah, for some reason I thought they were like, because she's in a lot of Tim Burton stuff. I thought that they were like husband and wife.
Yeah, but this movie is incredible. Have you guys seen it?
No, and I like musicals. I've just never seen it. I didn't really know what it was.
So this is a crazy story. Essentially, Sweeney Todd was sent to jail, and he comes back. And he's a barber who was sent to jail on false pretenses. He comes back and essentially uses his barbershop as a place for revenge, and ends up selling pies out of his barbershop as a secondary business. But the pies are made out of meat. And those meat are not from animals. They're from his victims. So it is a wild movie, but it's incredibly well made.
Okay. And I've just seen a lot of, I've seen pictures of it. And I guess I kind of I know Johnny Depp, he plays crazy well.
He does.
Yeah. So I could imagine how good it would be. What have I? So we're at number 15. I've got The Town. So another movie with Ben Affleck.
Mm-hmm.
Have you guys seen The Town?
Yeah, I haven't seen it. Yeah, this is one that's been on my list for quite some time.
Yeah, The Town's really good. Ben Affleck and his group of friends, they're set in Boston. Obviously, Boston is supposedly a town where the most bank robberies happen on a daily basis. Like bank robbery is a massive thing, apparently still in Boston. And this is a bunch of people with very, very thick Boston accents robbing banks. And Ben Affleck kind of like, he is a thief, but he's also tries to do the right thing and never wants to hurt people.
No, he doesn't.
I believe a girl she's kind of like an innocent bystander and gets caught in it. And then he like falls in love with her. And it's just a very, very epic story. I really like it. And it kind of leaves you wondering at the end what happened. Because it's kind of like, you're left going, oh, did he get away? Did he die? Did they live happily ever after? What happened to the money? So it's a really, really good movie. So and Ben Affleck is an awesome actor. So
he is, yeah.
So I'd highly recommend The Town. If you like Gone Girl, I think it's not the same premise, but the acting performance would be equivalent. And it's also got kind of that Point Break vibe to it with the mask and the way they do their robberies. So I think it's a really good film.
My number 15 that came out in 2015, directed by Ridley Scott, is The Martian with Matt Damon. And of course, The Martian is based off a book, but I have not read the book. I can only go by the movie, and the movie's excellent. Seeing how he deals with surviving by himself on Mars, and then seeing the the Earth trying to get back to save him. It's quite a survival tale done right. But unfortunately, what I can't give it credit for is because I haven't read the book, and I've heard that the book is better, but The Martian was a fantastic movie, and I think everyone should see it for its survival tale.
Yeah, I think I don't. I think I've only heard one time in my life where people didn't say that the book was better, and that's actually Dune Part Two. Dune Part Two is the only time I've ever heard people say, "Yeah, I actually think the movie is better than the book." But yeah. I'm sorry, I just blanked.
The Martian.
Yeah, I've seen The Martian. The Martian is phenomenal. I love that movie. The entire time when he's doing the irrigation on the moon, like all of that stuff is great. His survival on that movie is fantastic as well. I always hear people compare it to Ad Astra, but I don't like Ad Astra at all. And so I think The Martian is a way better space survival movie. But yeah, I think that I highly enjoyed that movie when it came out.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. I might have to. I just recently watched Spaceman on Netflix.
Oh, yeah.
With
Yeah.
Have you
I
seen
stayed
it?
away from that.
Yeah, it was weird. I didn't hate it, but it was very weird. So if hopefully The Martian's not the same as that.
It's not going.
I only stayed away from it because I don't know if you guys know who Zach Milne is. He's another YouTuber who reviews movies. I was watching his review on it, and essentially there's a gigantic spider in it.
Yeah.
And I'm not a fan of spiders at all, gigantic or otherwise. So he showed a picture of it, and I was like, no, that spider's too real looking for me. I'm sorry, I can't see it. And I had just come off of seeing a giant spider in sorry to say to Zach.
Yeah, I don't know why they chose
Return of the King. Like there's a giant spider in there, which I had a hard time getting through that part of the movie. But yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why they chose the spider, because it's essentially just meant to be some kind of extraterrestrial, but they went with it looking like a spider.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a weird movie. Like nothing really happens. It's just
he's getting delusional, I would assume.
Well, no, he's not delusional. The spider can like kind of show him his past, and they can talk about. But it's basically him having therapy with an alien and realizing that he's a bad person and he left his pregnant wife on Earth to go on a solo mission.
Oh, God.
But really, no context and really nothing comes from it. And it's like it's just 2 hours of kind of thinking. It's a bit weird.
It's weird because it's like any other animal, and I probably would have watched it, but
yeah, I don't know why they chose the spider.
yeah.
So what are we up to? You just went 15. So
yes, we're up to 14.
14. So what do you got?
14. For 14, I have Anchorman: The Legend of Ron Burgundy. It's the last comedy on the list. It's from 2004. It is one of the greatest comedies, if not the greatest comedy I have ever seen in my entire life. I love this movie. I know it line by line, precept upon precept. Like 60% of the time, it works every time. Is one of the all-time lines in history. That doesn't make any sense. What else? Boy, that escalated quickly. I mean, that got really out of hand. Like there's so many.
The most quotable movie you can think of.
Yeah, it's
like you watch a lot of podcasts and they use sound bites from that. Like, oh, it's science. Like there's always so many. Like it's got so many quotes that can use the sound bites. It's like the best.
He punted Baxter. Oh, I mean, there's lines from the movie I use them in my life. Like, I immediately regret this decision. Like, or, like milk was a bad choice. Like,
yeah, I say that nearly every time.
Yeah, so Anchorman, man. Yeah, it's probably my favorite comedy ever. So yeah, this is my number 14 choice, and yeah, I think it's pretty great.
I didn't put Anchorman in my list, but I do absolutely love it. I guess. What year did it come out?
2004.
2004.
Sorry, I'm eating, guys.
That's all right. I know why I didn't put it in. I can see what I put in 2004, but maybe I regret that choice now. So I've got it number, what do we get? 14. I've got Deadpool from 2016.
Good movie.
Deadpool is, I wouldn't say it's cheap comedy, but it's like the way they go about it, it's easy. Like you're gonna laugh at it, and
wall break.
Yeah, and it's fun. And I like that. So it's a guaranteed formula. I think the latest one coming out will, even if the story is poor, you'll laugh because they know what people find funny, and they're gonna, X-rated, slapstick comedy, be a bit, risque with what they say. So I think it's yeah, I just find it. It's a funny movie. It's something I'd rewatch, and I think most people say they like it. I can't think of many people that aren't into Deadpool.
Yeah.
So what do you got on your list, Jacob?
My number 14 is John Wick, the first one in 2014. And what I think makes John Wick legendary is that it's set the precedent for modern day action films, copying this film, like The Old Guard on Netflix. There's so many films that copied John Wick, and John Wick did so much world building without showing you. And this is such a thing that not a lot of other films have copied from this movie. Also, Silent Night copied off this movie as well, and that's what makes this movie so great, is that the action that's set and the world building. And if they didn't make a sequel from this movie, it would have been fine. This is such a good one and done film.
I agree. Yeah.
But unfortunately, this did an amazing job for its first film. The second one was not as good. I believe when people do their rankings for these films, the second one is always the lowest. So, yeah. But the first one is such a great starting point that everyone must watch John Wick to see how groundbreaking it is.
Yeah, both of these films that you mentioned, Deadpool and John Wick, the first one, are both like groundbreaking in terms of what you can do with a film. I think both of them, I don't think either, I'm sure they took influences from different places throughout action, but for the most part, they feel wholly original in their presentation. John Wick is great. The first one especially. I agree with you. The second one isn't as strong, but the third and fourth one are very strong in my opinion. The fourth one, to me, is very strong. Like, I love that movie. The only thing is, I really wish that they wouldn't do a fifth, because the fourth one ended perfectly.
I believe they're doing a fifth one.
Yeah, they are, but I really wish that they would not, because once you pull the death card, you can't pull that card again. Like, that's done. Like, you can't continuously pull that card, right? So, but then on the other hand, you have Deadpool. Deadpool is such a phenomenal movie, and the fact that it came from Ryan Reynolds or someone leaking the concept art to getting made into a full movie, that movie is incredible, and it did so much for the comic book industry, just in terms of making something different. And Deadpool is a different character in and of himself, but it gave us a different flavor, and kind of, I believe, gave directors more courage in the way that they make comic book movies. Oh, it doesn't have to be this formulaic. Now, I do believe that most of the comic book movies are different in a lot of different ways, but they can come off as formulaic, and this was one of those movies that set us off on that path.
Yeah, it's kind of just as important to the MCU as Iron Man. So, like, obviously Iron Man kind of got everything going, but then Deadpool kind of, whenever they start, people get Marvel fatigue, they chuck in a Deadpool and everyone comes back around. It kind of refreshes the palate. And I think that's what's happening now. I've had a large run of pretty average superhero movies. And then, they'll chuck in Deadpool and everyone will go back and go, oh, cool, all forgotten.
Right.
And, like, the Marvel's pretty good. I can't wait for the next MCU film. So I think I think it's, it needs something that doesn't take itself too serious. And, you could just be a fan of Deadpool and not watch any of the other MCU stuff. Like, really, it's just a bit of fun. I think everyone can get something out of it, unless you, I don't know, you don't find that type of comedy funny, or you're, I can't think of the word of it, but you're just not into anything that inappropriate. But, it's kind of made for everyone.
Yeah.
Okay, so number 13. What do you got, Kenny?
This is a hard one. I'm between three different movies, but I'm going to go with one right now, which is Creed. Creed is from 2015. It stars Michael B. Jordan, Sylvester Stallone, Tessa Thompson. It is a movie that I did not think should be made, and then I saw it and I was like, that's one of the best movies I've ever seen. So it stars Michael B. Jordan as Adonis Creed, the son of Apollo Creed. Rest in peace to Carl Weathers, who was one of the greatest action stars, greatest actors, greatest performers, period, in Hollywood over the past however many years he was working. He's a veteran in the game. But yeah, Creed did such a good job at making it into a boxing movie, a Rocky movie, but also separating itself and making Adonis' story his own. It's not a carbon copy of the Rocky story. It has influences from it, but they really, Ryan Coogler does a really good job of developing this character. And I absolutely love the last scene of the movie, the fight where Adonis is his eye is huge, it's swollen, and so Sly or Rocky is like, I want to throw in the towel. He's like, no, I need to prove it. He's like, prove what? That I belong, right? So if you've seen this movie, like it's just incredible, man. I cannot recall the last time I came out of a theater doubting a movie as much as I did, and then came out on the other side being like, this is one of the best movies I've ever seen. And it takes place in Philly, where I'm from. So it's great.
Proving you wrong, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we both really enjoy the Creed franchise. I'd never seen any of the Rocky films until Creed came out, and I'm not a fan of boxing. And I watched, and I was like, wow, that was good. And then now I look forward to, if they continue with the Creed franchise with his daughter growing up, will she become a boxer? But yeah, I went and watched the Rocky films after that. So I think it was a good way to bring new fans to the franchise, and I really enjoyed the latest one. I like Jonathan Majors, regardless of what happens in his personal life. I thought his performance in that film was great, and even though he was the villain, I kind of was rooting for him too. I think it's
because they did a good job of making you understand where he was coming from. Yeah. They made him an empathetic figure, like you understood. And yes, along with Star Trek and Kung Fu Panda and King of the Planet of the Apes, this is another one of those great trilogies that have come out in our modern film.
So 13, I've got right from the first year we could choose from, 2003. I've gone with Elf. So this is probably the movie I've seen the most out of anything, because it's a Christmas film. Period. When it comes to Christmas, I block out movies and I only watch Christmas content.
Nice.
So, Elf has been watched every year, maybe twice, since 2003. So I don't think I've seen a movie as many times as Elf. And
one I actually need to see because I've never seen it.
You never seen Elf? See, I don't know if it would stand up now, if anyone hadn't seen it, but I think everyone that's seen it finds it funny. There's a lot of people think it's overrated and don't understand why, but it's just for a Christmas movie, it's one you could rewatch and it's not tacky. In essence, it's got magic and Santa, but it's not.
Yeah, but that's Christmas.
Yeah, but it's not. It's not silly they've got to save. Oh, I guess they kind of do save Christmas, but it's more about the fish out of water story. This man he's a human but gets raised as an elf and then comes to the human world, and he's got a fish out of water story. It just has lots and lots of funny scenes, and it is a classic. It's an absolute classic. So you need to go see Elf. Same as Zach reckons he's never seen it. So do yourself a favor, go watch it.
Definitely.
What do you got, Jacob?
My number 13 is The Departed, that came out in 2006, directed by Martin Scorsese. This is such a great film showing the Jack Nicholson, Matt Damon, Leonardo DiCaprio, Mark Wahlberg, and Martin Sheen. Such an incredible cast. And also the showing how corrupt a police officer can get to betray his brother in arms, and such a cutthroat movie, The Departed, of showing Leonardo DiCaprio goes undercover, does all the hard work, and then unfortunately, this is spoilers, he passes away, gets shot in the face, and then Mark Wahlberg shoots Matt Damon in the face. This is such a cutthroat movie. Death, what you want from a gangster movie, such a epic movie. Everyone should see The Departed. But my problem was, from watching it a second time, everything just needed to work out for Matt Damon's character because he's undercover. But that's how movies go. It's such a great movie. You need to see it.
Yeah, so The Departed I did see. I watched it, I want to say 2 or 3 years ago when I was doing, it was a pandemic. We were stuck inside. So I actually set up this thing that I'm doing now on my channel, the Unseen Movie Marathon. Before I started doing YouTube, I did that for myself and just watched a bunch of movies I had never seen before. The Departed was one of them, and it was a great choice. I really enjoyed that movie.
Yeah, it's another one I haven't seen. I feel like everyone, both people's list, I'm like, I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that. I guess.
And it has Mark Wahlberg, one of your favorites.
Well, Leonardo DiCaprio, Mark
And
Wahlberg,
him.
and Matt Damon are like three of my favorite actors. So yeah,
Yeah.
to go see it. And you said directed by Martin Scorsese, so
Yeah.
that's makes it worth seeing. So what have you got at number 12, Kenny?
The list is getting hard. It's getting difficult, especially doing it on the spot. So I'm going to go with Captain America: Civil War. Captain America: Civil War is excellent. Like it does a great thing that I wish my cat is doing things. It does a great thing which I wish the MCU would get back to. But we'll get to that.
Character driven.
Yeah, not just that, but it introduces characters in the film and then allows them to go out and have their own movies like Black Panther and Spider-Man. And I think that that's the better formula than just introducing them in TV shows, or if you're going to introduce them in a film, do it in their own movie. But expecting people to go to a streaming service and watch 6 movies and then tie that back into future movies, I think that that's a lot. Put it right in front of their faces. The theater experience is 2 to 2.5 hours. And once you're done, you know who these characters are, right? You don't have to, I got to wait a week and wait. Anyway, but Captain America Civil War is one of the best conceptualized films. It's based off the Civil War comic, which honestly, this is a movie that you can say is better than the book. I just love the fact that we start off in the MCU with Captain America being very strict, being very matter of fact,
being very stubborn.
Yeah, and stubborn and respecting government and all this other stuff. And then you have Tony, who's not that at all. He wants to be a free spirit, essentially, and stuff like that. But by the time we get to Civil War, they're on the opposite end.
Opposite.
Yep. So, yeah, I absolutely enjoy this movie. It introduced us to Spider-Man and Black Panther in the MCU, and they did such a good job. Oh, in the airport fight.
Yeah.
Like you'll never, not that you'll never see a fight better than that, because there are fights better than that, but it's one of the better fights in superhero. It's actually one of those fights. So when you see like Infinity War or Endgame, you're like, I never thought that I would see this on screen in my life. This was like my first iteration of that, or my second after the first Avengers movie, which is coming up. So yeah.
I have a question for you, Kenny. Were you on Team Iron Man or Team Captain America?
So this is a difficult question. And the reason
why I asked it.
Yeah, and the reason why is because I understand both of their points, and I don't think that there's a great answer for either one. So for one, for Iron Man saying, hey, we need to be put in check. Mm-hmm. A lot of people are against that idea. I'm not against that idea because I don't want a bunch of superpowered people, billionaires, and all these other people running around loosely with no one overseeing them, and they can just go wherever they want. Because what if one of them does turn bad? Like, what happens if that happens?
Hulk goes bad.
Right. What happens if Iron Man decides, you know what, I'm done with this. I'm taking over. I feel like I'm better than everyone. Who's going to stop Iron Man, right? And then on the other side, when Cap says, what if we need to go here and they don't send us? I don't trust the government either to make the right decisions with these superpowered beings either, because I'm like, I don't trust them with regular human beings. Why would I trust them with superpowered beings? So it's a huge dichotomy on both sides. I think I lean towards Iron Man, but because I don't think that there should be no overseeing of things, but I am weary of the government actually being in charge of superpowered people.
Yeah.
Okay, so number 12, I've gone with Mean Girls from 2004. I thought 2004 was by far the hardest year to pick. I think that it had my most favorite classic comedies in it, which you had Anchorman, which came out in 2004. Got films like Kill Bill Volume 2, Eternal Sunshine, The Spotless Mind, Spider-Man 2, Harry Potter, Prisoner of Azkaban, The Notebook, Shrek 2, Saw. What else came out? I think Dodgeball came out in 2004, National Treasure. Like it was a hard year. I really found 2004 the hardest year. I went with Mean Girls because I thought that it had the widest appeal. I think Anchorman, I think, is very much a bro comedy. I think it's for guys, where I think Mean Girls, girls like Mean Girls, and then guys also find it funny.
Mhm.
So that's why I went with it over that. Obviously, it then got turned into a musical, which then got turned into a movie about the musical, which wasn't as good. But it was a very funny film, and I've watched it lots and lots. And every time I watch it, I still find something funny about it, and it's quite quotable. And it is one of the movies that I'm going to force Jacob to watch at some point.
It's worth it.
So I want him to watch that, Barbie, and She's the Man. I think they're three kind of girl-based comedies I think he needs to watch. So
Well, I'm looking forward to the other two, but Barbie, not looking forward
Barbie's
to that.
hilarious. You gotta watch Barbie. So what do you got at number 12, Jacob?
My number 12 is Prisoners with Hugh Jackman and Jake Gyllenhaal, and directed by Danny Villeneuve, the director that directed the recent Doom Part 2 movie. And this is such a very epic tale of showing a parent the lengths of what he would go to get his children back from hostage takers, from people that have taken children from one family and the other family, and seeing the lengths of what a father would go to is such an epic tale. And also Jake Gyllenhaal as the police officer is an epic storyline. And have you seen this movie, Kenny?
Not only have I seen it, it's my number 11 pick.
Oh, okay. So the epic scene of when the car is left on the bricks is such a epic scene as well. This is such a fantastic movie for its for the tale that's trying to take. But the main problem I have, you go to the lengths that you go to, and then for the movie to happen, I know it needs to happen, but you let your kids get kidnapped in the first place. It's kind of a minor thing, but still an epic movie.
Yeah, I think one of the strongest scenes in this movie, and I don't know if we want to just go to 11 because it is my 11.
Yeah, let's move on to it. Let's tell us why you picked it at number 11, Kenny.
Yeah, so my number 11 is Prisoners as well. I actually have this movie rated 5 stars on Letterboxd. It's phenomenal. But yeah, I think there are several strong scenes in this movie. I absolutely adore this movie. One of the stronger scenes is the scenes where they realize that the kids are missing and they start going to look for them. Like the panic in Hugh Jackman and Terrence Howard's faces as they're looking for their kids is like, it's gripping. It's terrifying, actually. And then the other scene, the scene that I absolutely love and reference every time I talk about this movie, is the bathroom scene where Hugh Jackman has the hammer and is like, "Where's my daughter?" Like I would do it, but it's like 11 o'clock at night, or it's almost midnight here, so I don't want to wake up my neighbors. But yeah, the whole "Where's my daughter" scene, man, that entire scene is great. Oh yeah, and the scene where he's in the car with Jake Gyllenhaal, and he's like, and Jake doesn't like, "Hey, we're working on it," and he's like starts punching the glove compartment. Like this, it's such a great movie with phenomenal performances. Like I love Prisoners. I don't watch it much because it's not an easy watch at all, but it's great. As a matter of fact, fun fact, I didn't realize Denis Villeneuve directed it until a couple days ago.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
I think I've seen it, but I don't remember. Like some of those scenes you talk about ring a bell, but I can't with confidence say I've seen it.
Mm-hmm.
What have I got at number?
2013 was 10 years ago.
Number 11, I've got a more recent movie from 2003. I've gone The Hunger Games, The Ballad of the Songbird and the Snake. I'm a big fan of the Hunger Games franchise, and I really like this. I think if anything, it added to the franchise. Often when you make sequels and prequels to something that's so universally loved, well, not universally loved, but something that's quite well liked, it can ruin it. But this wasn't the case. I actually felt this enhanced the story, and it's built up an appetite for me to want to see more sequels or prequels to this. I like this, futuristic world of, divisions, and you're having your different, competing against each other, and the whole point of the Hunger Games. And I think this did a good job of explaining where the Hunger Games came from, where I thought the actual main movies, they broke down why the Hunger Games need to end and fighting against it and the importance of it ending, but it didn't really explain where it came from, where this gave us a good understanding of why they started the Hunger Games. And yeah, I just really, really liked it. I thought it was my favorite movie of last year. So I thoroughly enjoyed the Hunger Games, The Ballad of the Songbird and the Snake.
Hot take. I actually think the prequel, that the Ballad of the Songbird and Snake, is actually better than the original trilogy, and the reason is because Jon Snow is more of an interesting character, and learning about his motives is more interesting than the main character in the original trilogy.
That's interesting. I've seen both. Actually, the funny thing is, after seeing The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, it actually encouraged me to go back and watch the original Hunger Games quadrilogy, because I actually had seen the first three when they were coming out, but I had never seen the last one for whatever reason. I don't know why the thumbs up keeps coming. I don't do that.
Yeah, it's weird. It does this every now and then when we do live ones.
But yeah, that's interesting. I don't know if I fully agree. I feel like I need more time with younger Snow. But Tom Blythe should absolutely have gotten some kind of like recognition nomination. I actually think two first-time performers should have gotten it. Dominic Sessa for The Holdovers, as well as Tom Blythe. I think those two are going to have amazing careers going forward, because they both did really great in those movies. Songbirds and Snakes was great. Oh my God, the GOAT, Viola Davis, was incredible in that movie. So yeah, I'm right there with you.
Yeah, think about young actors that everyone's talking about at the moment. You like Austin Butler and Timothy Chalamet get heaps of talk about, but I think Tom Blythe, I think his performance in that was better than like I we'll review Dune at some point. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but I just think Timothy Chalamet is he just plays I don't know. I didn't think it was that special, but I thought in Songbird, The Ballad of the Snake, Tom was awesome in that. I like that a lot more. And Austin Butler, I think he's pretty good in Dune. I don't know. He's playing a psychopath, that's all right. But yeah, I think about his performance in Elvis. I thought that was really good. But yeah, so I agree with what you're saying about him shouldn't be nominated for something or won something.
Yeah,
his performance was really good. What have you got at number 11, Jacob?
My number 11 is Shatter Island, directed by Martin Scorsese in 2010. And for first-time watch, this is one of the best mystery/thrillers that I think has been put on the big screen for a one-time watch. Working out the mystery going through. He's a police officer. He's working out what's going on in the asylum. And then the epic twist is his spoilers. He's actually an asylum patient himself. And then the reason being is because his mother killed his daughter, and then the emotions working out that, and then how it ends with him actually dying at the end, walking off. Such an emotional film. But why it's not high and in the top 10 is, for me, once you know that twist, it has no rewatchability. Unlike other movies that are high on the list, and when you're being critical, things matter. And for one-time watch, it's one of the best in film history. But when you need to watch things again, it's not as good. But it's still a fantastic movie with Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah, I've seen it. It's not one. I can't say it's one of my favorite movies. It's not a movie I particularly enjoyed at the time, but that was so long ago. I could probably revisit it, but yeah, at the time I just wasn't. I just wasn't into it.
You got a trend in your list, Jake. If you like Martin Scorsese films and Leonardo DiCaprio.
Well, actually, speaking of trends, I think I'll start off my trend with number 10, which is The Prestige by Christopher Nolan. The Prestige is freaking incredible. I have actually a really interesting story about seeing this movie. I forget what movie was coming out, like during the same weekend, but I was at the movies. Me and my friend, we had gotten out from the movies. We didn't like the movie that we had just seen. And right across the hall was this movie called The Prestige. I'd never seen a trailer for it, never even heard of it. And so we snuck into the theater sat down. I think this is what 2006. I was 16. I was 16, guys. So I stuck into the theater. We sat down. I was like, "What is this? This is great.
Mm.
This is fantastic." And I think the part that we came in on is I can't remember if it's right. I feel like it's right after. Have you guys seen it?
I have, yes.
I haven't. No.
Okay. It's right after the death of someone's wife is when we came in. Because after I rewatched it again, I didn't have that perspective, but it's kind of detailed throughout the rest of the movie. So it's right after that, and I was like, this is great. So yeah, it's one of my favorite movies of all time. Seeing it without even knowing what it was about, just walking into a theater, it left a lasting mark on me. It's one of my favorite, if not. I have another. Well, probably not, because there's another 2 more Nolan movies on this list actually, that kind of take the cake over it. But I love The Prestige. As far as Hugh Jackman, Christian Bale, Michael Caine was always in Nolan's movies. Scarlett Johansson, Rebecca Hall, Andy Serkis, David Bowie. Like this cast is crazy. So
Exceptional.
yeah.
No, I haven't seen it. So, number 10, I've got Spider-Man: No Way Home.
Interesting. Yeah.
Came out 2021. Again, it's one of those years there was some good films, but that was kind of the one that everyone was looking forward to. Everyone was waiting to see the scene with the Spider-Mans pointing at each other, and you got what you wanted. So if I had to pick one from that year that I would watch again and again, or if I had to could only ever watch one movie from that year, I would choose that one. So I'm not necessarily the best movie, but it was the one that stood out the most and has the most rewatchability from that year. So Spider-Man: No Way Home.
When I was looking at that year, there was not a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that
Because of COVID.
yeah, the pandemic years were the hardest, and then this year, is going to be very similar in the future because we've had it's kind of the end of the writers' strike. We're kind of seeing the lack of films because of that. So, where like last year was like so many.
I think there's some hope though, only because I feel like most of the movies that ended up being my favorite movie, I had never seen a trailer for, never heard of, or B, didn't see it until the end of the year. Like when you think about Godzilla -1, The Holdovers, the Iron Claw, like all these movies that like, wait, I just saw a trailer for this. It comes out in 2 weeks. Okay, cool. I'll go check it out. One of my favorite films of the year, right? So all that stuff happened. Actually, all that happened in December. So, so we have some hope that maybe there's some movies that we had not heard of yet that are going to blow us away towards the end of the year.
Yeah, we the way I've kind of done my planning for this year, ranking films, I go from like Boxing Day one year to Boxing Day the next, Christmas Day the next year, because you get so many films that come out, on Boxing Day or even Thanksgiving or New Year's Day, and because if you do your ranking right at the end of the year, that's going to be stacked by those, and you'll get the ones at the start. So I've tried to do it that way because the biggest movies come out then, and if they're still that good, I'll like them at the end of the year. Because, so
absolutely.
So what do you got, Jacob? What do we get? Number 10.
Yes, my number 10 is Logan, that came out in 2017, and this is such a epic conclusion to Hugh Jackman's Wolverine at the time. Yes, he's coming back in Deadpool and Wolverine, but at the time, such an amazing conclusion. The first R-rated movie that we got with the X-Men, and we finally got to see Patrick Stewart as being older, and we also got to see Old Man Wolverine, and it's a epic conclusion when seeing how he passes away, and such a bloody movie, and really extremely rated well.
Yeah. Well, not thumbs down, thumbs up. Yeah, Logan is actually on my honorable mentions list. But yeah, it's one of the best comic book movies ever.
It is, yeah.
In terms of it just being, and it's not even just like that. So the best comic book movies are movies that don't feel like comic book movies, right? And Logan's one of them. I think you can put Logan up there. I think you could put, at least for me, Captain America: Winter Soldier up there. Like those, like the ones that are kind of in a genre and in this Lone Wolf and Cub type of genre. I think Logan does such a great job at doing that. And then, like you mentioned, the way that he takes care of Professor X, and that is one of the saddest ends for a superhero that we love that I've ever seen. I'm not just talking about Logan, but Professor X as well. Like that was sad. But yeah, it's such a great film.
It makes me think when we were doing this list, we had this idea of what our list would look like if we weren't allowed to pick superhero movies. Because obviously superhero movies dominate both our lists quite a bit. And it was a very different list when you started subbing them out, but then it goes to them. What do you conclude that can you not have Harry Potter or like witches and wizards kind of like superheroes? It became very messy. But very superhero dominated. So what do you got at number 9, Kenny?
At number 9, I'm going to go with, because it's getting difficult. I'm going to go with Spider-Man: No Way Home. We've already talked about it a little bit, but yeah, Spider-Man: No Way Home is one of the Spider-Man: No Way Home to me is the best Spider-Man movie. It does something that's so incredibly difficult, which is bring 3 different franchises together that have literally had nothing to do with one another. And I think the impressive thing about the movie is that it's still Tom Holland's Spider-Man's movie, right? You have the other 2 Spider-Man there, but it's his movie. And it's the through line of him dealing with the loss of Aunt May, dealing with his secret identity being revealed, dealing with his humanity, his morality versus another superhero in Doctor Strange who has a very different view on humanity and morality. So he's fighting against that while also trying to make the difficult choice in his other areas of life. And then I think the thing that I love the most about this movie is that when you do bring in the other 2 Spider-Men, it has already established so much that they're not the catalyst. They're not necessarily the reason for the movie, but they do add so much to it. They come along as partners, as additions. And on top of that, when we heard that they would be in the movie, I was wondering, okay, so they're going to be in the movie. Will they just be cameos or will they be major factors in this film? And the fact that they are major factors for the second half of the film, like they're not just there and say hi and they dip off. They are huge impacts on Tom Holland Spider-Man's journey. They teach him a little bit about the fact that there are other people who have lost and they are able to resonate with him and help him in the worst point in his life, period. And and then they do such a great job of the banter and the dialogue, and they're talking about the different adventures that they've been in or their experiences, Spider-Man, comparing notes. It's great. It's such a great film. So yeah, Spider-Man: No Way Home is up there. It's just really good.
Yeah, it's cool to have a movie in the MCU where they kind of tackle like problems you'd think that superheroes would face, but they don't talk about. The fact of what happens when your identity gets revealed, or when this happens, where the DC do that quite a bit. Like they always have their superheroes, they kind of have jobs and they struggle with paying bills and different things. But the MCU don't often go that way. But we get to see that in that film.
Yeah.
And it's like one of those rare films where it kind of, they listened to the fans and gave people what they wanted.
Yep.
You think of a movie like, I really hope they do this with the comic book, and I hope we get to see this character, and you might get half the things you hope for. I felt like this, they just ticked every box of what people wanted. And it's like one of the times in a film where when you got them, when they came out, the other Superman, like Spider-Man, everyone just in the theaters, like uproar, like, and the fact that they kept it a secret, like you knew they were going to be in there, but you didn't know how much. It wasn't given away, or people like, oh, we saw them out acting and they did this, and you already know what's going to happen. You still not into watching the movie where you're sure were they definitely going to be in the film and what their role was going to be.
Yeah, so, and to me, the best villain of all, I want to say 9 now, or I think it's 8 Spider-Man movies, is the Green Goblin. And the fact that they brought him back and made him such an important, Willem Dafoe was amazing in this film. So yeah, I love this rendition of Spider-Man.
Hmm. So I've got at number 9, I've got Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 2. So the last of the Hunger Game ones, that's from 2015. I didn't want to put too many of the Hunger Games franchise movies from the franchise in, but I think this being the one that finished it off, I thought it was a really nice ending and a great story. And I'm a big fan of Jennifer Lawrence, so I thought it was a really, really good film. And it's one of my favorite movie franchises. And, it's one that I know it kind of gets you thinking about what could happen and what a world like this would be. Similar to the Planet of the Apes, it's one of those kind of like futuristic or sci-fi or whatever category you want to put into where you go, that's kind of plausible. Maybe that could happen. Like this is just a representation of, society if it went mad. And I liked it. So I'm a big fan of it. And that was my favorite of all the Hunger Games films. I think.
Yeah, and watching people fight each other.
Yeah. What do you got at number 9, Jacob?
My number 9 is the legendary Iron Man, directed by Jon Favreau. This is where the Marvel universe could have fallen and not even started, but because of how legendary Robert Downey Jr. was in this movie, because that he wasn't as good as he is now. He was a bad boy back in 2008 when Iron Man came out, but now he just won a supporting role for Oppenheimer. But this is, even with all the history with if this movie wasn't as good, this is a really fantastic origin story showing how when a legendary scene when he's in the military cars and then he gets taken by the terrorist, and then how he gets that character development, and then the scene when he says, "I am Iron Man," is one of the best Marvel origin stories that has happened. And I wish they did origin stories as good as they used to. I know why, because we're sick of origin stories, but if they did as good of if they did Captain Marvel as good as Iron Man, I think people would like Captain Marvel as much. But because they didn't, unfortunately, people don't like Captain Marvel. But Iron Man is such a fantastic journey and phenomenon for the MCU as a whole. And if it wasn't for Iron Man, we wouldn't have the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Correct. Yeah, it's one of the best superhero films of all time.
Yeah, great origin story. I think the whole concept is very cool. Tony Stark and deciding that he doesn't like what his company's doing, that they're funding terrorism and doing something about it. And then this whole idea of he doesn't have superpowers. He's very smart and has lots of money. I think that's very cool. And I think, his role, I can't see them changing Iron Man. You see, many versions of Batman and many versions of other characters in, from comic book sources. But I feel like that version of Tony Stark will just stay the same. That charisma he has, the look, like even in the Spidey and His Amazing Friends, the cartoon series, they even have him look exactly the same and voice the same. I just feel like that's cemented. That is who Tony Stark will be forever. That is, they won't try and recast him, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think they will. I think they'll only recast him if they're restarting everything.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't see that happening while this current version of the MCU is happening at all. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we're getting closer. What do you got at number 8, Kenny?
Number 8, I have Inception. Inception from 2010. Inception is one of the best movies I've ever seen. It's one of the best concepts I've ever seen. Having the dream within a dream. I mean, we still, at least I still use it in my everyday speech. Not every day, but whenever I have, don't try to inception me, put an idea in my head. Like when I'm talking to my wife about, hey, how'd you like to take the trash out today? It was like, hey, just try to put the thought in the brain. I already had that thought, but yeah. So Inception is great, man. One of Leonardo DiCaprio's best performances. Also one of Joseph Gordon-Levitt's best performances as well. And I believe that this movie was my introduction to Tom Hardy. So
yes, he was.
I love this film from start to finish. It's one of Nolan's best. I do have one more Nolan movie in front of it on my list, but yeah, this is great.
Yeah, I think any movie that it gets you thinking, and Inception is rewatchable because you still at the end it's like, oh, was it still spinning on the table? And you
Yep.
like you watch it and you see something different.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's unlike Jacob when you had Shutter Island before. It's like you watch it once, you know the twist. This
Mhm.
has lots of rewatchability.
And the thing it does really well, it does two things really well. One, like this is a new concept to anybody who's watching it for the first time. And by the end, by the middle of it, you understand the concept, you know the rules of the world. So then you can just enjoy it. But if you don't tell that part of it well, you'll just be confused for the rest of the movie, which is why I know some people really enjoy Tenet. That's the reason why I don't enjoy Tenet, because Nolan said, don't think about it, just feel it. Who are you talking to? What are you talking about? Like, I don't understand what you're talking about. And then the other thing is the action in the movie is great. And it's within that world building that you just told. So you built up this world where this action can happen. And now you're doing cool things with it. I think the movie is just phenomenal.
No, I agree. So I've got at number 8, I've got The Joker from 2019. I just think it's a great movie for, talking about mental health, giving a character, the Joker obviously is prominent in most Batman content, but he's a villain in this, but you kind of feel for him and understand where he comes from. And it's not all about, I know he's like, has he got powers or how's he killed people? He's got his gang of followers or whatever. It's how you said before, a comic book movie that doesn't feel like a comic book. Like the Joker is really for anyone. I don't think you need to have any interest in the Batman to understand that this is a man that is being pushed to the point of breaking point, and it's and historically in the time that it's meant to be, with the issues with not being able to get rid of the trash and like he was just able to start riots and get people to want to follow him. I just think it's a really clever way, because you always wonder in Batman, like, why do people follow the Joker? Like, why has he got this gang of goons? Like, what does he have to offer them? But this kind of gives you a reason to go, okay, he got people at the right time. And yeah, I think it's really good. And I'm really, really looking forward to the new one coming out this year. It's my most anticipated movie of the year. And I'm liking the fact it's going to be a musical, because I think it's going to be really, really weird. But I'm just hoping they nail it. I really do. So
I think that them making a musical, I know that some people have trepidation around it, but in my mind, if they're doing that, they have a reason. They're not just doing that haphazardly. So I trust that it'll be a good showing.
Well, I think it's because it's the whole idea of him going insane and Harley Quinn, falling for him, and I just think it will work as a musical. It'll kind of be like in their head that they're imagining these songs and dances going on, and I think it'll work really well.
Mm-hmm.
So,
changing things up.
But what do you got at number 8, Jacob?
Spider-Man: No Way Home. I think for me, since when I saw it at the cinemas, it was the most eventful movie that I've seen since Avengers: Infinity War and Endgame. And seeing when Andrew Garfield came through the porthole, it was such amazing scenes.
Yeah.
And the storyline, it's plausible, it's fine, but I think the nostalgia feeling is what gets me with this movie. And the Green Goblin, William Dafoe's performance, I think is better than anyone else's performance. Him as the villain, I wouldn't be surprised maybe he gets cast as the Joker one day. This is a nostalgic, real film, and that's what I think is groundbreaking about it. The story is okay, but the love for the scenes is what makes it special.
That's the first film that all three of us have picked from the same year.
Yeah.
So we all agreed on something. We made it well.
Yeah. I'm sorry. No Way Home is great. I'm blanking. My mind is going.
Okay, number 7. We're getting closer and closer.
7.
Yeah.
This part of the list is difficult. My last 7 are all heavy hitters. So let me go with Get Out. I'm going to go with Get Out from 2017, directed by Jordan Peele, starring Daniel Kaluuya. It's when you go to the movie and you see a movie that changes the way that you think about movies, and then changes the way that we talk, and inserts like brand new terminology that we don't use before. Like so many different things have come out of Get Out. It is such a great movie, and not only is it it's a great movie, it's a great cultural commentary, and it impacted like how we speak on a day to day. Like, hey, I mean, there look like some Get Out stuff, so I think you should stay away from that. Like, that's the real conversations that we have in my community, in the Black community, and stuff like that. So it's wild because even like the little micro aggressions from the family that he's visiting, like if you're from a certain culture, if you're from a certain understanding, you absolutely understand you see every little thing that's happening while the story is playing out. And Daniel Kaluuya gives such a great performance, as does everyone in the film. The film is well directed, and it starts off with Jordan Peele's incredible career so far. Out of the 3 movies he's made, it's still my favorite one. I don't like Us as much, but I really like Nope. So yeah, he's solidified himself as a director who I'm always looking for movies from. But yeah, Get Out is just great.
Yeah, I've been really wanting to see that, but the 1 or 2 people I know that have seen it gave me really mixed reviews on it, and I didn't end up watching because I love. Is it a horror film, or is it just kind of?
It's a thriller more so than a horror. Well, yeah, it's horrifying, that's for sure. So I would say it's a horror thriller. I know that those exist, those combinations. So yeah, I would say that it's both.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of horror films. Even though I picked none in my list, I'm a massive fan. So I think, okay, you've convinced me.
I think this is the only horror movie on my list as well.
Kenny, would you say the reason why Get Out is groundbreaking for you is because it makes you think how people can be so demented, or the same when he's on the chair drinking the tea and then he goes into the dream sequence?
Yeah, I think especially the latter part that you said is probably one of the strongest parts of the movie, because I know that those topics happen. Like, I have discussions about those topics almost every day. I think the groundbreaking part of this is how it's portrayed. It's how it's directed, how the story is told. Stories can be great for informing you of things, but they can also be great for telling you what you know in a way that is relatable or resonates with you, without just being the straightforward thing. It does a very good job of telling the story without it being just an expository dump of what your beliefs are or are not. So I think that those are the strongest parts of this film.
So at number 7, I've got The Wolf of Wall Street, which would be up there with one of my most watched films of all time. It's a long film. I guess it's kind of interesting that Jordan Belfort in this movie is seen as, he's idolized. I wouldn't say he's seen as a hero, but you idolize the things he does, and ultimately he's a pretty horrible human being with what
Stealing
he did.
money.
But it is so funny. It's the film that Leonardo DiCaprio probably should have won another Academy Award for.
I totally agree.
Margot Robbie.
Yeah, Margot Robbie's great in it. It's just
Jonah Hill.
I don't know. I just think it's for a movie that's a true story, and the way it was told, and you're interested in it. And I don't know. I guess it's a mix of, oh my God, I wish I had that lifestyle, but at the same time, it's like, wow, I can't believe the things I did. And I don't know. I just think it's a great movie, and being a true story that, be it probably embellished, it's hard to not find something to like about Wolf of Wall Street. Yeah. What have you got, Jacob, at number 7?
My number 7 is Captain America: Civil War, directed by the Russo brothers. And for me, what makes this movie in the top 10 is the characters, and we get to see the emotions. And this is the trigger of them dividing, and why in the Avenger movies, why it was so easy to Thanos to get the rings. But what makes this movie so groundbreaking is the emotion of the impact of how Tony Stark realizes that one of his teammates, Bucky, killed his mother, and Steve Rogers basically choosing one friend over another, even though that friend killed his mother. And it makes you feel those emotions, especially the scene when they have the fight and Iron Man said to Captain America, "You don't deserve that shield." Such emotions that we haven't gotten in the new era of the multiverse saga in the MCU. We did in WandaVision and Loki, but we haven't to this level. And the airport battle scene, such groundbreaking. There's so much of this movie that I love, and it's extremely. This is where the MCU needs to go back to, is getting grounded and real, and they need to bring back the Russo brothers to direct a film.
Absolutely. Yeah, Captain America Civil War, I had it early on my list. It's one of the best MCU movies, period.
Okay, let's keep it moving. What do you got at number 6, Kenny?
Number 6, I have the 2022 Best Picture winner, Everything Everywhere All at Once. This movie is freaking great. I love this movie. So I went to go see it in IMAX. I was sitting way too close. It was way too loud. I had such a great time. There was a host of multiverse movies that came out that year, and there's a bunch of them that I would have thought would have been like the best one, like Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. But for Everything Everywhere All at Once to be the best multiverse movie and the best movie of the year, in my opinion, it crushed it. And bringing back Ke Huy Quan as well as Michelle Yeoh, who she never went away, but this was her re-coming out party. She was great in this film, and I just love like the familial aspect of this movie and how they, through all of the multiversal hijinks and the weirdness and the hot dog fingers and all of all of the madness, it's still a story about a mother and her daughter trying to find each other and find common ground and understanding and love for each other through all of this madness. And I just love this movie. The fight scenes are great. The comedy is great. The science is weird, but it's also great. I just really, and I love what it did for Ke Huy Quan's for his career. Since then, he's been in things all over the place.
Loki.
Yep, Loki, and like he got a Best Supporting Actor Oscar from that. Like it's just great. And I believe Michelle Yeoh, I believe she got Best Actress for that. If I'm not mistaken. So yeah, it's just fantastic. I think the one tragedy from this movie is, this might be controversial, is that Jamie Lee Curtis got Best Supporting Actress, because I don't think she did anything in that movie that was worthy of Best Supporting Actress. Yeah. If anything, it should have gone to Stephanie Sue, but honestly, I believe it should have gone to Angela Bassett for Black Panther: Wakanda Forever and her performance in that. The movie may be what it is, but Angela Bassett in Black Panther was incredible. But yes, Stephanie Sue or Angela Bassett should have gotten it over Jamie Lee Curtis.
I feel like sometimes with award season, when a movie does really well, they just give every award to that movie. Yeah. So like that was kind of the go-to movie, so they just gave it to her. Where it's kind of like, not saying Oppenheimer hasn't deserved it, but it got a whole bunch of awards. Was it today, the Academy Award? And it's like some of those, they probably got it because of association, because Oppenheimer did well. Oh, well, we can't say it's the best movie and not also give them this award as well.
Correct. Yep. Yeah. That's why I thought towards the end of the award show, I thought it was a real chance that Poor Things could have gotten more awards, but Poor Things did great. And I'm actually really happy about the awards that it got. And the other thing I heard about Jamie Lee Curtis was that it was like a legacy kind of award because she had been in Hollywood for so long. Mm-hmm. But Angela Bassett has been in Hollywood as long as Jamie Lee Curtis. So I don't understand that argument whatsoever. They're literally the same age. They're both 65.
Yeah. Interesting. Have you seen this movie, Jacob? I haven't.
Yes, and I didn't finish off the movie, but when I
Mhm.
was watching, I was thinking this is probably the most original story that I've seen for a while. But unfortunately, I'm like, would everyone, if you're not a sci-fi fan, would you enjoy this movie? So unfortunately, I was like, oh, this is pretty insane.
Mm-hmm.
Do I like it as much? But when I get Netflix back, I will try and finish so I can finish my opinion. I can see why you have it on your list because it's very original, and I personally think movies are dying with their originality. And this one was like, yeah, this is a unique concept.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think I might pull the pin and see it. I think I missed the boat when it first came out. For some reason, I might be wrong. I thought it was. It's not in Chinese, is it? It's an
No,
English.
Part of it is.
Well, I don't know. I was under the impression it was,
It's parts.
and I was,
Yeah.
and I was like,
It's
oh, I don't
local
really want
English.
to read subtitles the whole movie, so I just gave it a miss, and then
Mhm.
later realized that it was really good, and I probably should have watched it. So
Yeah.
I'll go back and give it a watch. So I got it number 6. I got The Hunger Games. So I did actually. That means I've had 3 in the Hunger Games franchise. But I guess this is the one that starts it off. Having not read the books going into it, not knowing what to expect, I came out of that movie blown away. And this was at a time when they were kind of, when one movie came out, the next one came out the year after. They didn't stagger it and drag them out, but then it did get towards where it's the final franchise always gets part 1 and 2. So we were in that age then when this came out, but I really enjoyed the first Hunger Games, and it started my love for the Hunger Games series. So I've got that at number 6.
Good choice. My number 6, and this is the newest movie, originally came out last year, and this is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. This is such an epic story of trying to fit in, trying to feel accepted by society. This movie is about Spider-Gwen, as I've said, and her trying to feel accepted. Her dad doesn't feel accepted, doesn't accept her because of what happened with that multiverse version of Peter Parker becoming the Lizard, and then her finding the Spider organization, and then Miles finding the Spider-Man people, and then finding out he's a variant. And then the whole storyline is very epic. But the reason why I don't have in my top 5, because originally it was, I did some thinking about it, and the next part could wreck the first part. And for me, I did have to consider that, and how they ended the movie as well on that cliffhanger for me was kind of like, well, was that it's made me excited, but unfortunately, I can imagine if they didn't make a next movie, that would be such a epic fail if they weren't making a next one, but they are, and I'm very much, this is a groundbreaking for animation. I'm very much looking forward to the next part.
I've worked out this thumbs thing. If I do a thumbs up, it puts the dot, and when you do the thumbs down, it like reads our hand. I saw you do a thumbs up and it put it up. Problem solved.
Yeah, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is definitely one of my favorite movies for sure. I'll be talking about that a lot more soon.
It's one of the only animated films that I like that's not, made for kids. And
Yeah.
I'm not into anime. I don't dislike it. I just not into it. It's something I don't watch regularly. So this is one of the rare films that I like that's not purposely made for kids, like Wreck-It Ralph or Toy Story, where like this is an epic story that's shown in animation form. And yeah, great. It's great storytelling.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
So what do you got at number 5, Kenny?
At number 5, I have where did it go? This is probably the number 4 and number 5 were really hard ones to pick out. So I'm actually going to go with you know what? I'm going to call it audible. No, I'm going to go with The Dark Knight. I have The Dark Knight at number 5. That's my last Christopher Nolan movie. Uh, I mean, what can you say about it? I mean, it's just one of the greatest comic book films of all time. In some people's mind, it is the greatest comic book film of all time, and I won't argue with them about that. I think that this movie revolutionized how we look at superhero movies. It was one of those first that did the hey, if this wasn't just like a comic book movie, a this was outside of itself in that genre. But it is a part of that genre, so it should be respected as that. I mean, Heath Ledger as the Joker is just incredible. Like what from going from the trailer, going from his casting announcement to how people felt about him being casted after coming off Brokeback Mountain because of people's like homophobic views of people of the LGBT community. How are they going to cast this guy who's in Brokeback Mountain as the Joker? And then you have all these other people. He's just a pretty boy and stuff like that. And then to go from that to Halloween costumes every year, to inspiration, to wallpapers, to how people interact with each other, to how people think about what the Joker should be and should look like. Like it just shows how powerful that performance was and how great of a job Christopher Nolan did at directing it and writing this character because somebody had to write it. It's not just a performance; it's everything that's involved in it. And give Christian Bale props too. I think that he played really well against him, even though I wouldn't say he's like the weakest part of the movie, but he's not what we go to the Dark Knight for. We go to it for the Joker. And also, with an unsung hero of this movie is Aaron Eckhart as Two-Face. Two-Face is phenomenal in this movie. As a matter of fact, like seeing the trailers back in 2018, I'm sorry, 2008. Seeing the trailers back in 2008, like I saw that like Two-Face was in it, or Harvey Dent was in it. I didn't realize how much of a role Two-Face would play in this movie. And he's literally like a big part of that third act, and it's the best rendition of Two-Face that we've seen because it's a perfect representation of who Two-Face is, right? So I absolutely adore this movie. The action scenes are great, especially the scene where Batman is chasing Joker in the Slaughter tractor trailer. It actually taught me something because I didn't know Slaughter was just one letter off from laughter. Like that's insane. So yeah, that entire sequence, everything. It's the one Batman movie of Nolan's Batman trilogy that he actually does some detective work. So it gets some high marks for that as well. And I just absolutely adore this movie. This movie is the best movie of that trilogy, and it's one of the best comic book movies of all time.
I always love any particularly comic book based movies where the villain either has a reason or like I don't like it when it's just like, oh, this guy just wants to rule the world or he wants to just I just think that's overdone. Where like that's why I'm a big fan of Thanos because I'm like you could kind of relate to that. His planet was overpopulated.
Yeah,
but I like how the Joker he's just crazy for the sake of being crazy, and that's even better than going. Yeah. What does he want? He doesn't want anything. He literally sets money on fire. There's nothing he wants. He's just been that tortured that he just wants to see the world burn.
Yep.
I just think when you have a villain like that, like you're dealing with crazy. Then, like, how do you fight crazy? Like, it's a great film. So I have got at number 5. I've got Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2.
Okay.
Came out in 2011. So. Massive fan of the Harry Potter franchise, read the books, seen the movies, big part of my childhood. I thought this was just a great ending to that whole thing. I easily could have put every Harry Potter film in here, but that would have been a bit unfair. So I tried to just pick the one, and so I put that in. So at number 5, I've got Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2.
And they're also doing a TV show as well.
Which I was a bit against, but... I think it could be good. I've given in and just realized new content is new content. It's better than no content. So
right. Yeah, I actually watched the Harry Potter movies for the very first time over this past Christmas break, and I enjoyed myself immensely. Definitely Hallows Part 2 ends really well. My favorite movie of those movies is Goblet of Fire. So yeah, it's a great series. I really enjoyed it.
I can't pick a favorite one. I really don't know which one I like more than the others. They all just they're all good on their own. I guess if I had to, I could pick it, but right now, I couldn't tell you which one was my favorite. So
Yeah.
maybe the first because it got it started. I don't know. I'm a big sucker for when ranking TV shows. Season 1 always seems to be my favorite. So maybe that's just what it'd have to be. What do you got at number 5, Jacob?
My number 5 is the Avengers Endgame, that directed by the Russo brothers. And for me, why it makes the top 5 is when we got that epic finale of Avengers Infinity. We were so excited for the final, for the hype, and then when we eventually got into the theater, it was worth the wait. We finally got to watch it, and I know people are saying they don't like the movie as much because of the whole time travel thing, and the rat basically saved the day. My main problems with the movie is I actually think they chose the wrong character to be the one that defeated Thanos. Personally, I actually think it should have been Captain America, because throughout his journey, he's the one that says, I'm the one that's going to sacrifice themselves. I know they chose Iron Man because of the whole contract thing, but I think they should have chose Captain America. It would have made more sense, but they chose Iron Man. But I think Captain America would have been a better choice personally. But the final battle scene at the end, seeing all the people that got snaps come back, it's just such a epic finale that concluded the finale of the Infinity War saga. Even though they did the Spider-Man Homecoming, Endgame was the final conclusion.
Yeah. I absolutely love this movie. Like the thing about it is it's because I'm trying to because it is on my list. It's coming up soon. But yeah, I absolutely love this movie. I do think that Iron Man was the right choice, not just because of the contract, but in the first Avengers movie, Captain America says, "You're not the one to make the sacrifice play." And then for the rest of the series, you see Iron Man trying to build himself up to being that. And then it crescendos with him saying, "I am Iron Man," and then being the one to sacrifice himself. It was still sad because, he had a daughter and he had a wife at home now. It's like, he had to leave. But yeah, this movie is a triumph. I cried in the theater during this movie, and not even like during the death scenes, which I did cry during those too. But when they were coming out of the portal and then when they go into the battle, it's not like a tear of like sadness. It's a tear of like, I cannot believe what I'm seeing right now. Like, I cannot believe like what is literally on my screen in front of my face. Like, this is wild, right? So I absolutely love Avengers Endgame. Yeah,
it's one of those, again, a comic book movie doesn't feel like it, and you feel something. Like, it's not just, here's a bad guy, we've got powers, the bad guy will be winning, but then the hero comes out on top in the end. There's actually a lot more to it, and then obviously the effects of the snap then build for other movies and other TV series that came off after it, which is quite cool.
Yeah, so, and this is a tough one.
Okay, so number 4, you've alluded to a few things you got coming up. So what do you got at number 4, Kenny?
This is a tough one. I'm going with Avengers Endgame at number... No, I'm sorry. Not Avengers Endgame. I'm going with Avengers at number 4. The very first Avengers movie. It is, it's the one that started it all in a sense, because even with the Iron Man movie, the 2 Iron Man movies, the Thor movie, the Hulk movie, the Captain America movie, if Avengers doesn't work, nothing else works. And I had never seen at that time a movie where the lead characters from 5 other movies come together in one movie and they're all balanced incredibly well. And then you add in Hawkeye and you add in Black Widow, Nick Fury, and all these other ancillary characters that have been built up. And it was just balanced extremely well. I think about the helicarrier scene, like the helicarrier like fight scene, when it's starting to go down and Loki launches his attack and the Hulk's out, and it's an insane sequence. And that's before right before the final sequence of Loki invading New York with the Chitauri. It is wild how much happens in that movie. So yeah, Avengers, the first Avengers movie is absolutely incredible. I love that movie.
Did you like that they changed Mark Ruffalo as the Hulk instead of Ed Norton?
I did. I don't have an issue with Ed Norton, but I didn't miss him after seeing the movie.
No.
I thought Mark Ruffalo did a really good job, and honestly, I don't think Edward Norton would have brought the same type of levity and charisma that Mark Ruffalo did. And Mark Ruffalo has proven himself to be an incredible actor. I honestly thought he should have won best supporting actor over RDJ, but that's another story for another day. But yeah, he's the perfect type of person to play the Hulk because he played it really, really sincere and really well. Edward Norton's Hulk always came off as a little bit more arrogant than I would like for Eric Banner to come off, or Eric Banner to come off. Bruce Banner. I don't know.
Eric Banner did play the Hulk.
Yeah, right. He always came off a little bit more arrogant than I would like for Bruce Banner to come off. This particular iteration, I thought, was done really well.
Okay, so at number 4, I've got Casino Royale from 2006. So I really like James Bond, and this was kind of I remember watching the Pierce Brosnan James Bonds when I was a kid and playing GoldenEye. Like GoldenEye is like pinnacle of games. Like
that was the game back in the day.
Memories I have from playing GoldenEye as a kid on the 64.
Yeah.
But yeah, this, Daniel Craig in this was so good, and then it's just, and the rest. I like all of his versions of James. Every James Bond film he's been in, I really thoroughly like. And Jacob thinks that James Bond's overhyped and the franchise needs to end, but I'm a big fan of it, and I just love it.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of James Bond.
James Bond gets recast and we restart again. But Casino Royale, I think the concept of gambling with government money to potentially fund terrorism in order to stop terrorism, I just think it's a really, really cool story.
Yeah.
And then who doesn't like a spy that gets all the girls and drives the fast cars? There's a lot to like about James Bond. So Casino Royale is awesome. And the end scene, with the girlfriend drowning, and there's just so much to it. It's a very epic movie and easily would make my top 5 movies of all time. So yeah, I've got Casino Royale at number 4.
And also the same villain that is in Casino Royale is also the same villain from Doctor Strange.
That's correct.
There's also those villainous guys that just do the rounds. They're the villains in the villain.
Yeah. Casino Royale is great. Actually, that was on my honorable mentions list as well. I believe Skyfall was on there as well. Like both of those movies are just incredible. Actually, and I like No Time to Die as well. I think the odd number ones are great. The even number ones are not good at all. What is that? 2 and 4 are just terrifying.
Yeah, Quantum of Solace and
Spectre.
I don't dislike any of them, but they definitely would be the ones at the bottom of the list.
Yeah. For sure. So I'm a huge fan of those, especially Casino Royale. That like reinvigorated my entire love for James Bond.
Yeah.
And the 64. Yeah, I played it. I was never good at that game. All I would do is put proximity mines everywhere and hope that people will walk into them. I was just never really good at it.
It's just one of those games. If got a chance to play it, like obviously if you're born in the 2000s, you probably wouldn't have played it. But if you got a chance to play it and you remember it, even if it wasn't the greatest quality, it just has that memory. And then the soundtrack, like forever. That
soundtrack is
incredible. Just can't get it. So it's great. What do you got at number 4, Jacob?
Mine number 4, and I just recently watched this movie last night, so I can choose what I put on the list, and that's No Country for Old Men that came out in 2007. This is a groundbreaking movie for the acting and simple storyline. Basically, the concept is that money is in this area. There's been a gang shooting for drugs and stuff like that, and then the main character finds the money, and then you go, oh, that's drug money, should you take it? And then he does, and then the concept goes from there. You could argue if you didn't take the money, the movie wouldn't have started. But such a fantastic villain that the actors also in June Part 2, such groundbreaking performances by Woody Harrelson, even though he's not in the movie by much, and just shows how ruthless someone can be for money, and well deserved to be on the list.
Absolutely. Oh. Yeah, No Country for Old Men is incredible. Javier Bardem steals the show. The whole coin flip scene is one of the most chilling scenes in movies. But it's great.
Okay, we're at the podium. You got it number 3, Kenny.
Man, this is wild. Okay, so number 3 is interesting. Oh, wait, actually, number 3 is pretty easy. Number 3, the one I have there is easy, but for that particular year, 2019, it was difficult to decide between the two because it was Endgame, which is the choice, and the other one was Parasite, which is just incredible. But yeah, Avengers Endgame is, I keep saying it's one of the best movies I've ever seen, but yes, it is. Avengers Endgame is great because just like we talked about with a previous movie, I forget which one it is, but just like we talked about with a previous movie, it's great because it ends well. Like it all, like the 11-year build up to this movie, all the characters, all the storylines, everything that has to balance, everything that it has to like bring closure to, and also in their eyes spur on, like was all done. Ma'am, sorry. Everything that has to spur on is all being done in this movie. I know people talk about like the rat scene that saved it, but if you've read comic books and seen other stories, crazy stuff happens all the time. There are times when people can't win without like just gusts of wind that came up. Like it gets crazy. This is fiction. We can allow for some wild stuff to happen. I mean, we're talking about a talking raccoon and a talking tree as two of the main characters of the MCU. So I love this. Like I love the way it ends. I love the way it balances the characters. I love the way that it's just not like 2.5 hours of just punching and kicking. There's a lot of character building in this movie as well. The grief that Thor goes through. I know that some people don't like the fat Thor concept, but if you've had depression, if you've been there, you know that like body changes can happen. You can eat your way like to a bigger version of yourself in depression. Like all these things happen, and even when you consider like the reason why he was depressed because he couldn't save half the universe, right? So I think that he's justified in his depression and the things that come with it. And I know that some people even say like when he turns into like when he at the final climax of the movie where he's turning into Thor, getting ready to fight Thanos with the other two, that he should have returned to like the skinny version of Thor. I disagree with that too, because the things that happen during your depression are still very real. So it's not like you go from being depressed to undepressed and everything changes, it gets better overnight. You still have to deal with those things that have happened. So I love the way that the movie balances itself. I love the splitting up of the teams that go on these different time travel missions, and I also love the way that it brought closure to Iron Man when he gets to talk to his father during that sequence, and how Captain America gets to see Peggy one more time in the time travel sequence. And then when you talk about ending well, it ending with Steve and Peggy dancing to their song. I mean, absolutely incredible. Coming out of the portals, my favorite part of this movie, the part that made me like, I can't believe what I'm seeing right now, is when Spider-Man has the gauntlet and Captain America has the hammer, and Spider-Man needs help because he's under siege by all these like Chitauri, and Cap throws the hammer. Spider-Man webs the hammer, is riding through the air, through the sky on Mjolnir that Captain America threw onto a Pegasus that Valkyrie is flying, actually after being thrown up to the Pegasus from rescue from Pepper Potts, right? And then he has the Infinity Gauntlet on the back of a Pegasus, and they're flying through the sky as bombs and fires raining down from the sky. Like, what am I watching right now? This is incredible. I never thought I would see this in a movie, right? So all of that was great. It ended well. It started well. Even Ant-Man is great in this movie. So I mean, Ant-Man's great in all of his movies, but yeah, it's one of the best movies I have. It's like one of the best comic book movies I've ever seen. It's that good. Yeah.
I totally agree. So at number 3, you'll see a trend here for my final 3. I've got Batman Begins. So Jacob had this very low on his list. I really like this as a Batman film because I like Batman when he's fighting the mob. I think the Falcone family is one of the most interesting parts of the Batman, either comic books or the games. I like Ra's al Ghul and the League of Assassins. I just think that I prefer when Batman is taking on those type of villains opposed to, Killer Croc, this crocodile that comes out of the sewer, or Man Bat or something, it's a bit obscure. I like it when it's, I like the gangster element and trying to clean up Gotham City from crime instead of just super villains. So I really, really like it. And I think it started the Christopher Nolan franchise of Batman. And yeah, I really like it. It's a movie that I watch time and time again. And I don't see too many flaws in it. I do like Christian Bale as Batman. I know you guys said you don't think it's the best part of it. And it probably isn't the best part of those franchises, but he is Batman to me. He is my favorite version of Batman. I think the other ones in the past, we've got George Clooney. Like, as much as I enjoyed watching those films as a kid, they are a joke. Like, he's just stupid as all hell.
Val Kilmer.
I don't mind, but it's a bit outdated now. But I think this was the first Batman we got where it wasn't stupid. He's actually serious but proper serious. So he to me is my favorite overall Batman. But I'm really a fan of Robert Pattinson's
Batman,
which I was skeptical. But yeah, so that's what I've got at number 3. Batman Begins.
Nice.
My number 3 is a movie that came out in 2022, and it's directed by Matt Reeves, and it's the newest Batman with Robert Pattinson.
That's a great movie.
And the lead up to this movie, I was skeptical with the choice of Robert Pattinson. I was thinking, can he cut it as the Batman? I was not sure. And then when I watched the movie, this movie is groundbreaking. Same thing as you, Kenny. I kind of saw this as not a comic book movie. I saw this as an extremely well done movie. This is kind of like a 7 detective film with Batman trying to catch the Riddler. And that's what the Christopher Nolan movies are missing for me when it comes to their filming and their storyline, is that Robert Pattinson's Batman, I personally think, is better because we get to see basically a cat and mouse fight, and the Batman is as equal as the Riddler. What in the Christopher Nolan Batmans, he's the world's greatest detective, but we don't see his detective skills. That watching those Batmans, you kind of go, but in this Batman we do. So, and also seeing the Joker at the end and seeing different parts of it, and just a groundbreaking film, and very much looking forward to the Batman 2 and then the Batman 3 when it comes out, and also the Penguin show.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the Penguin show too. The Batman is great. There's no doubt about it. The thing that I absolutely love about the Batman, especially when you're talking about the Riddler, is that they never get into a physical altercation.
No,
Batman and the Riddler never fight. It's a battle of wits the entire film, and I love. Yep, and I love the fact that even in the end, when he's fighting the Riddler minions, it's more about solving the issue more so than just solving it with your fist. And I think the thing that is great about Batman's growth in that movie is that he goes from I don't want to be seen. I don't want to be seen as a hero. I don't want to do any of this stuff. And then by the end of the film, he realizes, no, I need to be out in the open. I need for people to know that I am Batman and that I'm here to help them. Because just being in the shadows, you ain't helping nobody. I mean, being in the shadows, that's Batman's thing. But being in the shadows, as far as like, are you just this scary figure that's not that's either on the side of the bad guys, but you're like don't like the other bad guys, or are you actually here to help? And I love that. Oh, and my lord, Jeffrey Wright as Commissioner Gordon, Lieutenant Gordon in this one is great. As is I'm forgetting her name, the woman who plays Catwoman. She's awesome in this too.
Lenny Kravitz's daughter.
Zoe Kravitz.
Zoe
She's great in this as well. The chase scene when he's chasing the Penguin with his car and he's driving through all those things. I'm like, yo, you don't care about the road at all. But yeah, it's great. I absolutely love that. I cannot wait until to see the Batman 2. I'm really hoping that he continues to use like more psychological villains, more so. And I feel like he's going. I feel like what is the director's name? I forget.
Matt Reeves.
I kept wanting to say David Fincher. I think it's because you mentioned Seven, which is a great observation.
Yeah.
Matt Reeves. I think I really want him to continue with the like intellectual villains. Maybe a Professor Pig, maybe a Hugo Strange, maybe a Hush, something of that nature. Or even Two-Face.
Third movie.
Two-Face would be great. Joker. Yeah, Joker. If you're going to do Joker, save him to the third movie. Because honestly, quite honestly, if I never see Joker in the movie again, I'll be fine. As a Batman villain, because they keep recycling the same. It's Batman or it's Joker in Batman movies. It's Lex Luthor in Superman movies. And even like in the Flash, I was pissed off because they never used the Flash villain. Like it's like it's like what are you doing? So I would like to see some new fresh faces as villains for the Batman movies. But yeah, the Batman's great. Actually, I keep thinking about rewatching it, but there's so much content to continue watching. Hey, what's up, Mike Reviews?
Hello.
Okay, I don't want to keep you up too long, because I know it's late where you are. So we'll keep going on and get Russ through it. So what do you got at number 2, Kenny?
For number 2, this was a hard choice between 2 and 1. But for number 2, I'm going to go Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. This movie is everything to me. And I literally cried within the first 5 minutes of this movie because of how much it means. Like, I'm Black and Puerto Rican as well. My brother, she's Puerto Rican. Like, I have a whole side of my family is Puerto Rican. So seeing that representation on the screen was super important for me. And then it's a great film. Like, Miles is such a relatable character. I know that kid. I've seen that kid in my neighborhood. I was that kid at one point. Like, everything about Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is phenomenal. You have a great voice cast. Shameik Moore as Miles. You also have Mahershala Ali as Uncle Aaron. You have Brian Tyree Henry as his dad. Like, you have all these incredible voice actors, and you have Kingpin and the gigantic shoulders, which were absolutely ridiculous, but I loved it. And I saw that movie right after Stan Lee had passed away. And that was like, and to see and hear Stan Lee's voice again, like literally right after he passed away, it meant a lot to me as well. It was like anybody can wear the mask, it always fits. And then he points to the sign where it says there's no refunds or returns. So I absolutely adore that movie. That movie, to me, it's the second best comic book movie of all time. And that's just for me, but I absolutely love Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, so I've got number 2. Jacob just spoke about it, was the Batman. I thought leading to this movie there was no way I was going to like it. I just thought I'm a huge Batman fan. I was like, I just don't want to see them ruin it. I thought Christopher Nolan's version was perfect. There's no need to do any more. This was great. I liked everything about it. I think getting the Riddler right was cool. Like, I know
Yeah.
the Riddler's not often depicted like that. It's a bit different than the other versions of the Riddler, but I like
Jim
this
Carrey.
version. I think Paul Dano is awesome in it. I think it just nailed everything about this movie.
Mhm.
I like the detective thing too, but I don't care that the other Batmans didn't have the detective thing. Like, yes, he is the world's greatest detective, but he doesn't always have to be. And there's got to be a
Yeah.
reason. Like, he doesn't need to always be a detective. And he's not. I know that's the catchphrase they give Batman, but he isn't always a detective in every
Yeah.
version.
Like you
But
were
this
saying
was-
earlier, there's a million different versions of Batman.
Yeah, it was cool to see this version, and it worked well with this. I also like the fact that they found a way to relate this to kind of the real world, that, you know, there's people out there that are kind of on the edge waiting for someone to kind of brainwash them and convince them to do something crazy. It only takes
Mm.
one person online to get something going and convince a bunch of followers to go and start a riot and, you know, start trying to shoot innocent people. Like, it's really, it's kind of how I, as someone that's not from America, see, like, America's kind of feels like it's on that tipping point that, you know, whether it's a Donald Trump or someone else could create this kind of craziness, and it felt real. I think I thought it was a really good movie.
Yeah.
That, so,
Absolutely.
yeah, it was one of my favorite movies of all time, considering I expected it to be rubbish. So I've got that at number two.
So it exceeded your
Oh,
expectations.
well exceeded my expectations. I've watched it so many
That's the
times.
first time. That's how I felt about Creed.
I just love it, and I can't wait to see more things. But I like most things Batman, whether it's the games or it's the comic books. I even liked the show Gotham. I thought that was good, you know.
Mhm.
And
I know a lot of people like that show.
none of it makes sense. Like, for most of these things, they all conflict with each other, but that's fine. That's how comic books work.
Yep,
So,
absolutely.
yeah. So what do you got at number two, Jacob?
My number two, and this is probably the most hyped people have been for a movie. Avengers Infinity War. The hype for this movie was real. The build up for this movie, watching all the movies, and then really this movie is about the Titan himself, Thanos, and then seeing his motivations, seeing that it was about hunger and the world's population. And this is real problems that we're having now in society. So you could really relate to the Mad Titan, and seeing the different teams and their location. This is really Thor's journey throughout Avengers Infinity War, seeing him lose his brother in the beginning, seeing his best friend die. He's the main character that kind of goes through Thor, Ragnarok, and this movie, and the powerhouse of Captain America and Iron Man joining together. And then what this movie does really well, it gives you that Empire Strikes Back feeling that the villain actually wins. I just recently watched Dune, and when I heard Dune 2 was compared to Empire Strikes Back, I was expecting the villain to lose, and then when I watched that movie, I was like, how is this compared to Empire Strikes Back? To me, Avengers Infinity War is more like Empire Strikes Back. So Avengers Infinity War does such groundbreaking job because the villain actually loses, and we don't see that in modern movies.
Mhm.
That's the problem in modern day movies, is that the villain doesn't lose enough, and that's why I love about this movie, and that's why personally I think Infinity Wars is better than Endgame, because Endgame has to redo what the villain did, and then they defeat him. So Avengers Infinity War is my number two because it was so groundbreaking. Going into the theater, us going, who is going to die? Is it going to be Iron Man? Is it going to be this and that? And Star-Lord as well, making his decision. But it was a very rash decision, but it was very human. Such a groundbreaking movie. And it was our Empire Strike Back of this generation.
Absolutely. Like I love Avengers Infinity War. It was a really difficult decision not to put it on the list because it's the same year Into the Spider-Verse had came out, as well as Parasite. Yeah, so it's that was really difficult. But yeah, Avengers Endgame, no, not Endgame, Infinity War, even more so than Endgame, was an incredible triumph because once again, just like Avengers, when I said if you don't bring all this together, it doesn't work, and the rest of it doesn't work. Just as important as that spurring on is Avengers Infinity War starting the end of that journey, and it did it so well. You had already loved the Avengers, the individual characters, and you had already loved the Guardians of the Galaxy. So to bring them together in such a great way was absolutely incredible. Thor's entrance into Wakanda was iconic. The actually that entire sequence with Eitri and all
Bring me Thanos.
yeah, Bring Me Thanos was iconic. And then the fight on Titan, just Spider-Man trying to catch all these people and the entire crew trying to take down Thanos. And that scene that you mentioned, Star-Lord's decision was, that movie is great. And then once Thanos comes to Earth and just knocks out all the rest of the Avengers, it's just a heartbreaking and phenomenal movie.
Should have aimed for the head.
Yeah, should have aimed for the head, which spurred on that depression I talked about with Thor. So yeah, I absolutely love this movie. One of my favorite theater experiences of all time.
What do you got at number one, Kenny?
And number one, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is my favorite comic book movie of all time. It is the only reason why it's not my favorite movie of all time is because The Lion King is my favorite movie of all time. But yeah, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Yeah, yep. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is a absolute triumph. I understand how people feel about its ending, and it ending kind of on a cliffhanger with you not really knowing where it's going to go forward. But I honestly, as you were mentioning before with Empire Strikes Back, I alluded to Empire Strikes Back. Empire Strikes Back, everybody loses, or the Empire Strikes Back. The good guys lose. You have no idea what's happening with Han Solo and what's going to happen with him. You have no idea how Luke is going to come back and take down Darth Vader and the Empire. Yeah, so it's also hanging in the balance, and it's not the end of the story. And in similar way, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is not the end of the story. So I absolutely love this movie. When I talk about this movie, I'll talk about Rio Morales and her conversation with Miles in the beginning of the movie, and her telling him, hey, like, no matter what, realize that you belong. You're not a mistake. You're important. You always have a home here. Like, there are people who are going to tell you the opposite, but you need to know like who you are, right? And then towards the end of the film, what happens? We have Miguel O'Hara saying, you're a mistake. You don't belong here. You shouldn't even be Spider-Man. He's telling him everything that Rio had warned him about in the beginning of the movie. And he takes that and he internalizes that in such a beautiful way to do this, because his parents, he tried to find his community in a bunch of people that he didn't know, and that turned out to be not where he was supposed to, not that it's not where he's supposed to be, but that didn't turn out to be the safety that he needed, because all of them chased him throughout the multiverse, or throughout that scene, which is the best scene in the movie. All of them chased him throughout that scene, but he realized everybody wants to tell me who I'm supposed to be and what I'm supposed to do. Nah, I'm gonna do it my own way, right? So he realizes he's Spider-Man, right? And he doesn't need anyone else's approval to be Spider-Man. So the Spider-Verse movies are my number one and my number two. I absolutely adore those movies. They're the best movies I've seen in the last 20 years.
And they got awesome soundtracks, both of them.
Oh,
the songs that came out for both of them to promote them were awesome. What we got, Mona Lisa, like for the latest one, and then Sunflower with Post Malone, like there.
Sunflower's awesome. Great. Yep.
Yeah. So I got it number one. So continuing on with the Batman theme, I've picked the Dark Knight.
Yep.
You both
great movie.
In your list and talked about it. If I had the reason why I put it number one is if I had to pick one Batman movie to rule them all, that would be the one. The more I think about it, I kind of like the new Batman probably more, but maybe that's because it's just newer or fresher in the top of my head. Yeah. But yeah, I really, really enjoy this. I think Heath Ledger's performance is awesome. but all the things we've talked about. So as a Batman fan, I think that kind of nailed it. You know, the villain, Batman itself, it's the length of the movie, the action, the grippiness of it, just everything all encompassed together. It's my favorite movie. Don't know if it's my favorite movie of all time, but it's the top three. I'd have to think long and hard. What didn't make the list today, but would still be in the top three? I don't know. What do you got, Jacob?
So my number one in this ranking is directed by Sir Peter Jackson, is The Lord of the Rings and the Return of the King. And I just recently watched this over the weekend and realizing it is a long movie, but it's well worth the journey. This is such an epic character motivating storyline. The pieces are moving in this movie, well, a lot of movies don't do nowadays. Everything has weight to it. When the orcs are attacking Gondor, when Sam and Frodo are going to Mordor, and then when the spider scene happens, that has so much weight to it. And then when Aragorn is trying to get reinforcements because Rohan is outnumbered, everything has weight to it. Unlike, in my opinion, Dune had a lot of action, but not a lot of story because it expected you to know what was going on. But that's another topic. With Lord of the Rings, when it came out, the hype was real, and it came out in 2005, and I actually saw it then when I went to the cinemas, and it still holds up. And people go to the Hobbiton in New Zealand, and I went there as well. So this is one of my favorite movies of all time, and it stands out. We've got legendary characters like Frodo, Sam, Aragorn, Gandalf, Gollum, so many characters, and the story is incredible. And also J.K. Rowling also reading these books because he went to World War One, so it very much feels like that as well. So that's why it's at my number one.
That is a great pick. And to tell you the truth, I had just watched the Lord of the Rings trilogy for the first time this year.
What were your thoughts about it?
I absolutely loved it. So the Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring is great. I watched the extended versions and I had a really good time watching the Fellowship of the Ring is great. For me, my personal rating is Return of the King, Fellowship of the Ring, and then at last I have Two Towers. Two Towers is the only one after watching Return of the King, I felt like 4 hours of filler in a sense. Not 4 hours, but maybe like the first hour and some hour and a half feels like, yeah, we could have cut this out and kept like the way that the story really pushes itself forward. So I don't love the Two Towers, but I do love Return of the King. Return of the King is the better movie, the best of those bunch for sure. And I absolutely loved everything that you just talked about in terms of Gondor, the attack on Gondor, how most of the movie is one big battle. I like thoroughly enjoyed that. I was with Frodo and Sam is the best friend a man could have or a hobbit could have ever. The only part of the movie I wasn't like enjoying was the spider scene because it was a lot of gigantic spider and I wasn't feeling that. But even so, it's a great part of the story. I'm just creeped out by spiders. It has nothing to do with whether or not the movie's good or not. I'm just creeped out by spiders. But yeah, I think it starts well, it ends well. It starts better than Two Towers as well because it gets right to it. It just gets right into everything. So I thoroughly enjoy Return of the King in the trilogy as a whole. I'll probably skip the Hobbit movies because I'm not interested, but the original three I really enjoy.
I wouldn't recommend watching the Hobbits. Don't bother.
Yeah, that's what I hear.
Yeah, it's disappointing. I haven't seen the Hobbit movies, but I read the books and I liked the books. But I've seen the Lord of the Rings movies, but not read the books. So
Interesting.
I need to read this thing because I watched them as they came out at the cinemas, and I haven't watched them a second time ever, and I liked them. So maybe I need to watch them like you have recently.
Yeah. Yeah. So between December and I want to say the last weekend, I watched all the Harry Potter movies and all the Lord of the Rings movies for the first time.
Okay, well, that's our top 20 with a bit of a twist. Or what's the time where you are, Kenny? I imagine
It is 1:12 a.m.
Okay. Yeah, it's 3:00 in the afternoon here, so it's not too bad of a time, but yeah, it's a bit better. Not as bad as you. Anything you want to say, Jacob? Wrap it up for us before we end it.
I do have one quick question for you, Kenny. Which year did you find the hardest to choose from?
I was hoping you would ask me that, and that year, if I recall, was 2000 and it was either 2006 or 2008. I believe
mine was 2008 because I was going to choose either Iron Man or The Dark Knight.
Yeah, exactly. So that was. Let me pull up the film list, or the list.
And what was your hardest year to choose from, Luke?
Oh, well, I ignored 2020 because that was hard. Maybe 2006, I think it was. 2004 because I had lots of great comedies. But it's strange that in my list I didn't pick The Dark Knight Rises, but I picked almost every other Batman film to come out in that time. And I can't remember why, because the year it came out, there must have been something else that I really found it hard to pick more than. Because I do like The Dark Knight Rises a lot, but didn't make the list. Must have been a tough choice that year.
Yeah, it was pretty tough because like 2003 was also tough because I had just seen the Lord of the Rings Return of the King, and also had X-Men 2 that same year. I believe Bad Boys 2 came out that year, which is a movie I really love, and then Kill Bill came out that year too. But yeah, 2008 was difficult, and if I recall correctly, I believe 2018 was difficult. Yeah, it was. It was Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, Infinity War, Black Panther, and I think those and is Parasite this year? I don't think so. I think Parasite's the next year. But yeah, 2018 was really difficult.
And Thor Ragnarok, I think, came out that year as well.
Let's see, 2018. I'm pretty sure it did because I know that Thor and Black Panther came out back to back.
Yeah.
Oh, Creed 2 came out that year. How about that? But yeah, so yeah, that year was difficult as well. I also wanted to get a Mission Impossible movie on here, but it just kept getting beat out by other things. Mission Impossible Fallout, the one with Henry Cavill, came out in 2018 as well. And that was the one I wanted to get on the list, but then it ran into Spider-Verse, Avengers, and Black Panther. So, hey. Yeah.
Okay, you want to wrap it up, Jacob? Thank Kenny for his time.
Well, thank you, Kenny, for joining the live stream, and thank you, everyone, for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed the concept of this, and as always, you are awesome, and keep being awesome, and see you next time.
See you later, guys.
Yeah.